So I will slowly start with some housekeeping. So as every year and as for every event we are organizing, we are trying to make this event a safe space and a platform and a room for everyone to learn and to interact freely. So I would like everyone to listen and read with the same energy and focus that you want to be heard, to make sure that all the voices here are heard and respected. Embrace a learning mindset. So we are all biased. Be aware of that and try to be curious about the things that you hear and see. Respect different points of view and hold space for multiple perspectives. This is how our lives get richer and better. If you make an error, apologize, make amends. We are all human. We have to show some compassion and understanding. And if there is a situation that your boundary is crossed, let us know about that. So Maggie is helping with the chat. Let her know, and we'll try to fix it for you. For everyone joining now, these are inclusive engagement guidelines. They are also being now pasted in the chat for the full text. You can check the document. And as I said, if there is a situation that makes you feel that your boundary is crossed, let Beth know, and we'll try to fix it for you. And you can click through to the chat for the full text, because I'll now switch to today's program. So as every year, we are trying to make a connection between storytelling, culture, but also big themes in the world, in the history, and themes important for different communities that live together. So we'll start by a keynote about Kalili Foundation's World Festival of Cultural Diversity. Then we'll pass to a workshop about crafting a video interview. So in the world where a lot of stuff is digital, we'll explore people making crafts and how actually to show it, how to create a video, so a digital format about it, and how crafts can be a form of activism. So join us to learn practical things about crafts and video making. Then again, an important theme, mental health and well-being, and how storytelling can support those. Then we'll have a little break. During the breaks, you can go and explore all the links we'll be sharing throughout the sessions, but you can also interact with us on social media using the hashtag DigiStoryFest. We'd love that, and we are super happy to share your insights and reactions. After this, we'll explore a place in the world where actually you can publish your stories. It's called Europeana, and my colleagues Maggie and Yolan will show you how to do it. They will explain different possibilities of contributing stories. They will tell a bit about copyright, how to find content, but also they will tell about our grants, which is an opportunity to obtain a grant for the story you contributed. Then a lunch break, and after the lunch break, we'll invite you to a session about art and music and the way they can showcase Black history. So this is a very nice session showing how creative formats can in a very powerful way tell Black history. And after it, we'll do a little wrap up, tell the highlights of the day, and introduce day 2. As I said before, the chat is for reactions, interactions with other participants. Q&A section is for questions and answers, which will be answered either during the session or just after, or if just after is not possible, you'll get everything in the recap email after the festival. One more important thing, when you close your Zoom window at the end of the sessions, there will be a little survey pop up. And we would love you to answer those couple of questions in the pop-up. The reason for that is that we really want to make our events better, more interesting, and really respond to your needs and preferences. So every event like this is a learning opportunity for us. And to learn, we need your feedback. So please, little survey, don't close it, take 1 minute, and answer the questions. And it's the time to start. So without further ado, I'll give floor to Waqas Ahmed, Executive Director of Khalidi Foundation, who introduced the World Festival of Cultural Diversity. You can see some of the stories contributing to this festival on Europeana. Go and read them. But Waqas will tell about all the other activities of the festival. Waqas, the floor is yours.
Alex, thank you so much. Thank you, and good morning to you all. I assume it's good morning for most of you if you're in Europe, but wherever you are around the world, greetings to you, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for Europeana for inviting me on to open this day. The World Festival of Cultural Diversity is something I'm going to go into in a bit more detail, but just to give you a little bit more background about those who are less aware of the Khalidi Foundation. I'll start the story with the Khalidi Collections, which some of you would be aware of. The Khalidi Collections is is a significant private art collection and renowned as one of the most culturally diverse private art collections in the world, in that it consists of 8 different collections from different parts of the world, and there are about 35,000 works. And the purpose of the collection, unlike most private collections, was indeed storytelling, and storytelling for the purpose of cross-cultural understanding and greater respect and a greater awareness of each other's ways of life, each other's ways of thinking, but also each other's ways of creating. So therefore, we have with the Khalidi collections, and again, you can go ahead and research the collections, and you'll see from the website and various other platforms, including Europeana, that we use to showcase the collections. You'll see how diverse the collections are, both in terms of both culturally and geographically, but also in terms of the time period they cover. I'm not going to show you any slides today because I wanted to start off the day with just us engaging and you not having to read anything on screen. But what I will say is that the Khalidi Collections has given or contributed to over 120 exhibitions around the world, and has published over 100 volumes of research and cataloging, and also has digitized much of its collections for public consumption. So it's a private collection for public good, essentially. And we are working with various partners, including Europeana, Wikimedia, and the likes, to ensure that as far as possible, much of this research that we've conducted into, for example, Islamic art or Swedish textiles or Spanish metalwork is readily available to people, not just through the research and cataloging, which would be of interest to scholars and enthusiasts, but also we've converted many of this information into stories for people that are just generally interested, and those within education who want to learn more about different cultures through their creative forms. And so Europeana, of course, being one of the major storytelling platforms in the world, is a natural partner for us. And so the Khalili Collections was where this whole notion of storytelling began. But actually, the Khalili Foundation has a much wider remit of supporting those projects around the world that are actually doing a lot. So there's a lot of great work being done to promote cultural diversity around the world, and that could come in various forms. It could come in the form of preserving a local tradition or a heritage that tells the story from an indigenous perspective in different parts of the world. It could be stories of cross-cultural collaboration. Indeed, within the collections, we have many such objects and artworks that are a result of cross-cultural collaboration, either direct or indirect inspiration. And you'll see on Europeana, there are some great articles and stories published from the collection. So, for example, you'll see how the 19th century metalworker Placido Zuloaga, Spanish metalworker, was influenced by, essentially 800 years before him, by the Muslim artists who operated within Spain, within the Alhambra. And many of you who've gone to Alhambra know it for its beautiful architecture, but also its movable heritage, its carvings, its textiles, various other forms of pottery, and some really beautiful decorative arts that actually ended up inspiring many modern and contemporary European artists as well. So that's one example, but there are many others that we can talk about. Another I will just spotlight now is a story on Europeana relating to the Japanese kimono, and how not only was it influenced by this dialogue, this opening dialogue between the West and Japan following the Meiji Restoration, but also how it then went on to influence European modern and contemporary artists as well. And it just served as this kind of form of dialogue between various cultures. And it's just wonderful how that played out. And it's just exemplary of the kind of cultural diplomacy at work. So this is something that we're very, very proud of, bringing to light some of these stories that have perhaps have not been told or undertold. And so that's why, as a foundation now, we're supporting, we're embarking on a more ambitious endeavor, which is to encourage cultural diversity worldwide. And one of the ways in which we're doing that now is through our work with UNESCO. And UNESCO, the founder and chairman of the Khalili Foundation is Sir David Khalili, who is this really phenomenal figure. And I encourage you to look more into his background and his story, because it gives you an understanding of the vision behind the collections and the foundation. And so he is a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. So we do a lot of work with UNESCO, but also we do a lot of work with other international organizations. So where international organizations through their networks have are kind of supporting projects that promote local culture, for example, or promote cross-cultural exchange, we will do all we can to support that, either through funding or through the kind of cultural content that we've built up over the decades, and through our network. So basically we have international organizations like UNESCO, the United Nations Alliance on Civilizations, who we now work with, and the Commonwealth. And we're also doing work with the Prince's Trust and other organizations to try to have as much impact within the space as possible. And one really strong example of this, as Alex mentioned earlier on, was the World Festival of Cultural Diversity. Now, the World Festival of Cultural Diversity came about through our publication of a book now a year and a half ago on the Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity. So it's this promotion of the diversity of creative expressions around the world. And as many of us would know, that for various historical, cultural, political reasons, some cultures have predominated over others when it comes to the propagation of it worldwide. And therefore, what we're on a mission to do is to try to kind of bring new stories to light, or not new, but at least bring stories that have perhaps been overlooked or sometimes even suppressed to light. And so the way we're doing that through the World Festival of Cultural Diversity is we are partnering with various organizations around the world. We recognize that there is already great work being done in promoting cultural diversity by various organizations, international organizations, community organizations, digital platforms like Europeana, and various others. So we have partnered with a variety of organizations around the world, recognizing that they are doing great work, and that what we ought to do is mobilize these efforts and bring together this global network of individuals and organizations that have this shared objective, a shared objective of promoting culture and cultural diversity, and also spotlighting the events that they have on. So therefore, coming under the umbrella of the foundation of various initiatives, including exhibitions, talks, webinar series, research programs, awards and challenges, much of which you'll find on our website. So I encourage you to go there, clearly.foundation, and you can / World Festival of Cultural Diversity, or just go on through the navigation. But what I should highlight here is that two things. One is our partnership with Europeana on this particular festival, which we are very proud of, because Europeana, of course, is a pioneer in the space of celebrating cultural heritage and cultural diversity, not only within the European context. So actually, when we were pleasantly surprised to see that there's so much rich content on Europeana already that promotes cultural diversity in a number of ways. And so when you have the time, and perhaps the organizers can share the link at some stage, but basically the World Festival page on Europeana shows basically how cultural diversity can be split into three, I suppose, wider segments. And those segments are interesting because you have basically cultural diversity within the European context. So you have even within Europe. So if we're to take out the diaspora influences, or shall we say the non-European influences on European culture, which is profound and substantial. If we have, if you see, aside from those which we are covering in one section, we're also looking at the diversity of European culture as it has been for centuries. So within Europe, of course, you have various countries, and within those countries, you have various cultures and subcultures, and within them, they have different traditions, different creative traditions, and sometimes we don't recognize the diversity that has always been there from within Europe. And so we wanted to spotlight some of those stories as well. And then the other one was cross-cultural exchange. So how these various influences, as I've mentioned before, global influences, have had a profound impact on shaping European culture, something that again is understated often. So so we're very, very happy about that particular section. And then what the whole thing, so it's a year-round festival of various events all coming under the umbrella of the World Festival of Cultural Diversity. So it's this global, I suppose, campaign stroke movement, or what we call a meta festival, rather than a conventional festival having, being a specific time period in a particular location with a particular program. Instead, we are recognizing that such events and such initiatives are already happening worldwide. We just want to amplify their impact and bring everybody together. So yeah, and now on 26th, so the World Day for Cultural Diversity is on the 21st of May. So please do use this opportunity to spotlight various stories within this context that you can, and share them. And then also you have on the 26th of May, we have a major event at the UNESCO headquarters, which is like a culmination event where we're inviting these various partners and bringing this network together in person in Paris. And if you want to know more about that event, please again contact the organizers, and I'll be happy to share. But in short, we're very, very happy and proud and humbled by the response for this festival, and it's very encouraging. And I want to communicate this to you all, that it's very encouraging that in this kind of world, which sometimes we see as divisive and polarizing for various reasons, we do have this growing movement worldwide to celebrate the cultural diversity. And we hope that we can harness that and continue that for years to come. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Akash. Thanks for your words and for introducing the festival, and for all the enthusiasm about celebrating different cultures. Maggie and Bev have dropped a bunch of links to explore in the chat. So everything you want to know about the festival, click through and go for it. And there is also an opportunity to contribute as a storyteller. So through our editorial grants, we are inviting stories exploring connections between various cultures. And to learn step by step how to do it and how to get a grant for it, join the session by Maggie and Yolan later on. We have already some submissions. We are very happy about join other storytellers doing it. Thanks for this. Now time to move to crafting heritage. My colleague Rania will introduce the session. Enjoy.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here with us. My name is Rania Musakiti, and I'm a marketing specialist for Europeana Foundation. I'm a white cis woman in my mid-30s with dark curly hair, and my pronouns are she, her. I am here today to introduce the Crafted workshop. Crafted is a project, for those of you who don't know, that supports the transfer of European crafts to future generations by aggregating, enriching, and promoting tangible crafts heritage and preserving intangible skills and knowledge from craftsmen and artisans. And today with us, we have Marta Franceschini, who is a communication coordinator at the European Fashion Heritage Association, and Anna Carniel. I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, network coordinator, creative projects manager at the European Fashion Heritage Association, and Lucia Richards, who is an artist curator and co-founder of Smack Unreal, the first video festival inspired by jewelry. And I think you can take it away from here. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much. I think that the first thing that we should, well, after thanking you for inviting us to kind of hold this workshop and talk a little bit about what how we thought creatively about approaching the theme of craft, we should just say that Lucia unfortunately fell ill yesterday and couldn't speak, so she's not joining, but she will be very much present in our in this hour, let's say, because what we thought would be interesting to do to make the session a little bit more kind of interactive is to use the video that we did with Lucia to showcase how you go about creating a narrative for a video and actually shaping, even in very material terms, a video storytelling. So Lucia unfortunately is not with us. It's me and Anna today. So we'll do a double act, and we hope that you'll enjoy it anyway. And of course, I mean, I think we have all the contacts. So Lucia you can get in touch with her via email or on Instagram. She's very active, to also see what are the other things that she does. So yeah, just to say that she's not going to be with us, so don't look for her in the picture.
Sorry.
She's not there.
Sorry for this. Yeah, and also thanks for inviting us here. We are very glad to be here today with you. Yeah, we wanted to briefly introduce our association, EFA, so the European Fashion Heritage Association, is basically an international hub where both GLAMs and brands can share online their heritage assets, and where they can also find a place to not only showcase what they have in their archives, but also discuss about their experiences, about the best digitization practices, and about digital access and valorization of fashion heritage resources. Marta and I specifically work in the communication field, so we are dealing every day with the communication aspects of all these materials and beautiful objects we have online, and we try to build everyday storytellings about the material we have. As an association, we also contribute as a fashion thematic aggregator to Europeana. So we know very well the Europeana team. Something else we want to say is that we participate to a lot of different cultural projects also with Europeana. And today we are going to tell you something more about the Crafted project. Crafted is a project that started in 2021. Is still going, but it will finish very soon, at the end of next month. For this project, we've tried to highlight a lot of crafted related items that you can find online in the Europeana archive. And we've tried to build stories and narrations around these beautiful objects. But we also tried to actively involve communities that work with crafts. And we also tried to document some immaterial knowledges, such as techniques, skills, and traditions that you cannot find online on European Archive, obviously, because they're not objects and they cannot be photographed or digitized. And this is why for this specific project, we've tried to develop new formats, editorial formats that we didn't have the the chance to use before this project. So this is why for Crafted project we decided to film some video interviews. So we are here to share with you our personal experience with videos and interviews, and we wanted also to discuss this with you. We are not Marta and I video makers. We are we work with communications in general, but we are not video makers. So yeah, we did for the first time with this kind of format and media.
Yeah, and in a way, I think that we arrived to the conclusion, and we'll touch on this when we get into the more practical side of this workshop. For us, it was really about considering the topic and understanding how to go about the topic, because yes, you can talk about crafts, you can write about craft, but then we were confronted with the fact that these crafts, the things that we looked at, are kind of dying out because they're knowledge that's held in the hands and minds of the people who do that. So it's something that's very much connected to doing. So the only way of going about not really trying to save, but record at least these crafts was to film them. And of course, using the film allowed us to also have the voices. So we thought that it was a very good opportunity to try and do a little bit of oral history, or at least like oral recording that then become oral histories on how these crafts were started and how they developed, and how really what we were interested in was to look at how these crafts are still alive and active and contribute to kind of social scenarios of different locations. And another thing that we should say is that from the very beginning, we decided that we didn't want to go about the topic in a kind of a global way, but we went more into the localities. So we looked at different localities and looked at the crafts that developed in those dimensions, because for us, and this is, I guess, true also for Europeana in general. I mean, we have this breadth, this richness of content and of possibilities, and we think that the word is all connected, but then yes, it's connected, but still has some things that are very specifically linked to locations. And I'm just saying all these things, and we're just saying all these things as introduction, because the very first thing that you need to do when you develop a strategy, or when you develop a storytelling for a video, the planning starts with a selection of the topic, and the selection of the topic is really the point in which you have to set your boundaries and understand what you're looking at, what is the time period, who are the people you talk to, and these are things that we're going to see in a minute. But just to make a point that craft for us was past, present, and was also something very connected to different locations and different traditions that then could go into kind of a more pan-European vision of craft. But then still, we were very much convinced that we had to kind of look at specific places and specific groups of people and how these groups developed the crafts.
Yeah. Now, I'm very sorry that Lucia can't be with us today, but I'm sure you can find her bio on the program of our workshop. Okay, she is a visual artist, and here you can see a couple of her artworks. We met Lucia because we decided as an association to work together with the Basil Papantonio Foundation. The Basil Papantonio Foundation is an EFA partner. They are based in Nafplio in Greece. And we decided for this specific project to collaborate with our partners, because we are not experts in the field of craft, and we wanted to highlight very specific crafts, also in very specific geographic reasons. This is why we decided to actively collaborate with our partners and try to involve also the local community where we filmed the videos. So we decided to collaborate with the Basil Papantonio Foundation, and they put us in contact with Lucia, who we interviewed. And here you can have a glance of all the interviews you can also find on the Europeana YouTube channel that we've produced for the Crafted project. If you'd like to know more and watch the videos, you can, I think we can put the in chat the link to all the video playlists. And I also wanted to say that EFA is not the only, thank you, Beth. EFA is not the only partner of the Crafted project. So you can also find videos made by our the other partners. So not only about fashion, but also about other crafts and other topics. I think that now we can be more specific and talk about just one video, the video with Lucia. In the interview with Lucia, in the specific case, we decided to interview her. So she's a visual artist, and she told us how a kilim is a carpet, hand-woven carpet that she inherited from her family. She told us how this specific object influenced her artistic practice. And so, as Marta was saying before, this object, in this specific case, represented for us a bridge between past and future. And the kilim let us it was like a mean to travel in time and talk about not only crafts in the past, but also about the crafted objects in the present, and how they can also be a way to improve the quality of life and culture in the future. I think that we can have a look at the beginning of the video. Just a quick look at what we've done.
My name is Lucia Richards. I'm a visual artist and I have ancestry from Leonidio. This is the house of my great-great-grandfather, who was the first mayor of this little town. My connection to kilim started when one day, more than 20 years ago, I was lying on this couch behind you and I took a look at the kilim that is on the floor. And I was impressed. As I said, I'm a visual artist, so I was impressed by the form, and I was impressed that I've never noticed before how amazingly warm the colors were and striking, and the simplicity and power of the form, the tooth-edged square that in the local kilim language is called herakia, the little hands or ktenia. Kteni is the comb for the loom. This particular kilim we are sitting on is a kilim created by assignment for the dowry of my great-grandmother. What is a kilim? A kilim is a sort of carpet, but it's different because it is a woven that it can be used both sides. There is no right and wrong. And it is also thinner than a carpet. So my great-grandmother did not weave. Maybe she did some embroidery or some of these kind of things that they pertain to the household activities, but she had her servants and she had the women she would assign with, so she had time to do the social networking, the PR for her husband, to bring up the girls and boys she gave birth to. The kilim became part of the decoration of the house and a reminder of her origins. But it was not the proof of her own manual work, it was rather the proof of her wealth, because it was expensive to create something like that, and I suppose it took...
Okay, so I'm sorry for interrupting the video, but if you want to watch it in full, you can find it on the Europeana YouTube. And I think we can move on with the workshop.
Yeah, if you watch it in full, I think that the title will be clearer as well, because the title is Craft as Political Art, and towards the end, which allows, and this explanation allows me to kind of answer a little bit to Isabel and the question that she put in the Q&A. Towards the end, the discussion with her, and that wasn't planned, because of course we planned the questions before, but then when you interview someone, you also want to leave them kind of lead a little bit and see where the conversation goes. She told us basically that at some point there were groups of women making money producing the kilims, and only women were making the kilims. So that's why it was a way of kind of politicizing their role and making them relevant within the society, because kilims were something that was admissible in the dowry of anyone really. So who couldn't afford to buy it would make it themselves, but then the richest, as Lucia was saying, would have it woven by these groups of women who were actually earning their living making kilims. And then as you'll see if you watch the video, there are some other political aspects about the symbols and the kind of iconography related to kilims, and also keeping kilims, because the kilim that Lucia had there was, I think, 150 years old, Anna? Yeah. And she decided, and this is something that we're going to touch on later, now that we finally get into the workshop, she decided the setting. So we got into her house, this kind of amazing house full of cats, and the kilim was basically just covering the whole floor. And she said, yeah, now you have to take off your shoes, step on it, and we're going to do the interview sitting on this, because you have to be, you know, surrounded by everything that's in the house, and the kilim has to be our base if we want the kilim to be the focus of our interview. So in this sense, talking to her and we did previous research on these things, and that's why we decided to focus on looms. And when we decided to focus on looms for this series of videos in Greece, then we talked to experts in Greece, and they said, well, let's focus on kilims, which are very much connected to looms. And that's how we went about the topic. So we did a little bit more research, and we understood what kilims were, and we individuated the people that we wanted to talk to, that we wanted to get a response from. And the images that you see in the video, I mean, you have Lucia and Lucia, but Lucia is not a maker of kilims. So the hands that you see are contemporary makers that Lucia put us in touch with, that showed us how a kilim is made. And this is not something that's just related to a very specific area in Peloponnese. I mean, we went around Peloponnese and saw at least 3 or 4 makers.
Yeah, I think 3. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the kind of research is very much comes very much out of discussion and collaboration with people who know, who are experts in these fields or have lived in these areas. I'll read out loud the question, and Isabel, tell me if we answered, but I think that the answer gonna come throughout the workshop. So Isabel asked about the video recording, how the decision was made about the script, what kind of questions, were they based on previous research, what kind of research, did you visualize the complete story you want to tell, or did this happen along the interview? I don't know, Anna, if you want to add something, but I think it's something that it's gonna be unveiled during the workshop now.
Yeah, I think the same. In fact, we decided to divide our session into 3 parts, so it will be easier for us to explain you how we decided to develop our video production. And so the first one will be the ideation. We decided to work on crafts because of the Crafted project, which was our starting point, and starting from that, we thought about the partners of the association that we could involve actively in the project, because as we've already said to you, we wanted to actively involve the communities in the video creation, and also we wanted to interview communities and try to be as real as possible. We selected the Basil Papantonio Foundation because we perfectly know that they have a lot of craft related objects in their beautiful collection. So we had a discussion with them, and because we wanted to select with them a more specific theme for the videos. And we decided together with them during our discussion to work on looms and weaving, exactly because they have a lot of beautiful and ancient looms in their collections. So this is why we decided to work on looms. Then the team of the foundation put us in contact with Lucia, because Lucia, exactly because she works on the history of kilims, and she used this kind of craft to produce her own artworks. She has a lot of she has a big network of weavers, and she knows a community, an existing community of weavers. So then we started our discussions with Lucia as well. So it was we conceived our videos together with both the team of the Basil Papantonio Foundation and Lucia. Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, we can say that we were a bit more. We kind of facilitated the story to come up, and we knew generally the things that we wanted the video to touch on. We wanted craft to be central, we wanted local craft to be central, and we wanted personal stories to come out, because we believed that was what the video should showcase, you know, the connection between craft and local communities or even families. So we kind of knew these things, and also we had been to the Basil Papantonio Foundation the year before, saw the looms and thought, oh, this is very interesting that in a, you know, a foundation or fashion museum, they have these materials that show the techniques and the making behind the garments. So when we went to Angeliki Rumeiotti, who's the amazing curator of the foundation, she immediately said, yes, I know exactly who you need to talk to. And actually the video that we did with Lucia was just one of a series of 4. So if you browse in the Europeana YouTube page, you'll see the others. And they're all connected to looms, all connected to this idea of craft as memory, craft as a way of holding communities together, creating communities as well. We talked to historians, we talked to makers, so we tried to have a selection of people that could tackle the topic that we selected from different points of view and could give us something that we as non-experts didn't know. So this was more or less how we went about the topic.
Yeah, here you can see objects from the Basil Papantonio Foundation. As you can see in the frame on the right, they have beautiful looms in their collection. Yeah, and here you can see Marta with our video maker interviewing Ioanna Papadoniou, the director of and the founder of the Basil Papantonio Foundation.
Yeah, she basically is the person who saved these looms and organized. And she was telling us, instead of telling us the functioning of looms, which was what we kind of wanted, let's say, when we went in, she went into a incredibly interesting story of how she saved the looms and she logistically took them into the museum from different regions around Greece. And that for us was a discovery because we didn't really know that we wanted to talk about that. But that's also this practical element of saving craft and transporting these huge looms ended up being super important in the whole narrative of the 4 videos, because that's how we managed to frame and to connect crafts with storytelling and also spaces of memory, so museums and places that are fundamental to safeguard these memory and these material memories as well.
Yeah, so I think that now, yeah, we can enter in the active involving part of our workshop. In fact, we want to propose you a main theme, which is art and digital technologies. And we would like you to think about what topic you would like to dive if you have to film your own video. Set a working title for your video, and then individuate at least 2 people you would like to interview in your hypothetical video interview.
Yeah, we tried to give a main theme that's as wide as it can be, so that you can kind of carve your little spot, and it doesn't have to be, you know, the ultimate video on art and digital technologies, but it can also be a focus on an artist or a focus on an exhibition or a focus on something that you liked. I mean, the more cohesive your selection is, the better, I'd say, in terms of managing the narrative, because the more people you have, and we had this problem a little bit in some cases, it can get out of hand. So Anna, I don't know, do we need to give instructions for the Menti?
Yes, you can use the QR code with your phone, or go to menti.com and enter the code, which is 77885745. Okay. Okay. So considering the theme we gave you, let us know the general idea you would like to work on, and you can type it on Menti so we can see it and maybe discuss it with you. We know
Yeah, interactions are a bit difficult, but we'll try.
yeah.
Q&A maybe. This is just an exercise to kind of get you into the mindset of having a topic and selecting something that you want to work on. Yeah, and it can be as general as STEAM. Okay, tech and creativity.
Interesting. Okay. So it's so interesting to see how there can be a lot of ideas that are so different one from the other, but still in the same, you know, general theme.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and it's everything is valid, and as you can see, I mean, it could be a kind of a series of how many videos we could make, one for each of these things that you're typing in. And the interesting thing, and I think that the kind of the conceptual step that needs to be done after this brainstorming is, okay, so what is the kind of a shared space between art and digital technologies and, say, aging, for instance, or sorry, I'm just getting very close because I can't see everything, or graffiti. So what's the shared space? What's in that shared space that we could look at, and who are the people leaving that shared space? What are the objects inhabiting that shared space?
Yeah. I also think that once we have this keyword or keywords, we could try to connect the dots and think about a working title, which is also a useful mean to clarify and to focus even more on the ideas and the theme. Yeah, so we can wait a couple of minutes because I see that people is still typing. Women in art, yeah. But I see really a lot of different and very interesting ideas. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, preservation, clearly that's something that interests a lot of people. Very tough topic for a video, but it would be interesting to think, because I'm sure that behind these keywords, people are already thinking about who are the people that they want to talk to, or where these ideas come from. And I'm sure, yeah, as you said, Anna, that a lot of these could be connected. So this is also how teams are built in a way, because if someone is interested in gender disparity and someone else is focusing on women, maybe they could join forces and work together on a narrative that's more kind of complex. And just one thing while we wait for this to settle a little bit more, we did our videos for this specific project were maximum 10 minutes and some, but the hours of filming were infinite. And in a way, even if you have 10 minutes, it doesn't mean that you have to make a simpler video. I mean, I think that the difficult part, and this is something that we'll touch on later, is really editing and understanding how to make the most complex and rich in terms of content, in terms of storytelling video that you can make in however minutes, or however long, or however length you have for your video. So the planning is very important, and these mind maps, these maps of ideas and words, and this preparation work on the concepts is very important, because it's something that will come back after, when you go back to your, when you did all your videos, all your filmings, etc., etc. And then you end up having 12 hours that have to be condensed in 10 minutes. Anna, I don't know, do you want to read some of these?
We have women, photography, but also NFT, AI, scanning. We have also oral history, cultural heritage, yeah, of course.
Ocean
Observation.
literacy. Wow.
Mhm.
I would like to see a video on ocean literacy.
Yeah, 3D technologies, very interesting. Digitizing, digitizing handwork, yeah. Technology for writing. That's interesting.
I mean, if we imagine that all the people that kind of participated to this Menti are a team that have to be split into smaller teams to work on different topics, this map could be the starting point to develop kind of a storytelling strategy on different levels. So you could have, the first video could be on a more general one, so on creativity, and you could pick the more general terms, and then you could go into kind of a smaller, more precise and composite themes. So this looks like a very easy exercise, but it's actually something that we did, and that we constantly went back to understand that we weren't, wandering around or losing track.
Yeah, I agree with Claudia in chat. She says storytelling is the best best way to link the history of one item of the collection to related contemporary social themes. Yeah, that's we agree with you.
Yeah, the problem with the word storytelling is that is being used in many different areas, and especially in marketing now. So what we try to do with the videos and how we approach it is exactly just going constantly back to objects, constantly back to collections, constantly back to things, and things that then are repositories of stories. So the things for us were the center, and then we went to the people who were connected to the things, but the objects, and this is probably something that's very much linked to our kind of where we come from professionally. I'm a design historian, and material culture is central. Anna has great experience with fashion objects. She's worked in archives and in heritage departments everywhere. So that's our starting point, and that's our interpretation of the word storytelling. And I think that it's important also to define it in your head. What does storytelling mean to you when you go about doing storytelling?
Yeah. Okay, so I think that we can move to the next slide. So now you have a general idea of what you would like to explore with your video. Could you be more specific? Yeah, you can type your ideas on Menti.
Yeah, just maybe a line or two to explain what you want to do, or why at least. So why you want to focus on women, why you want to look at digitizing handwriting, or what you mean by creativity in the art and technology realm, just to clarify a little bit further and see if we can find more connections. And this is a process, this is just processual, so it's something that it's clearly a process that you would follow to develop a storytelling strategy for a video.
Ways of preserving music. Okay.
It's quite nice that preserving and kind of the conservation side or the saving side is pretty prominent, because in a way a video is something that stays and that remains, and we feel that we can watch it in a however many years time, maybe when, you know, a museum display is changed and things are changed, and you can watch it again and hear the voices and hear and see that something as intangible maybe as music has been preserved. So it's definitely a good solution, the video, to preserve these kind of slightly intangible things. And once again, the subject matter is very important, because for us, craft was something intangible, in the sense that, yes, we had the objects, but we also wanted to talk about the people behind the objects and the techniques behind the objects. So, and those things were less tangible, let's say, especially if people were, you know, passed away, or the technique was something that is not written in books, or, I mean, doesn't have the same strength written down than kind of seen done. Yeah, and I think that the inclusivity is key. And in a way, inclusivity is something that you, as maker of the video, or as facilitator, if you want to use this word, you create the condition for inclusivity, because it all comes out from your research and the way in which you approach the topic. So maybe not going to the most known person, just the most known person, but do a little bit of digging and find the people who actually have something more interesting to say, because they're not poisoned by, you know, rhetoric or these kind of things.
Yeah. I also think that in this kind of phase of the project, it could be also useful to focus on single objects, type of objects, or, you know, something very specific. I don't know, for example, which kind of music, or what are we talking about when we say music, and, you know, preserving music.
Yeah, the same can be said for, I see a lot of stories and histories, and especially if you want to do a narration that goes over a long period of time, so you look the past, the present, and the future, having something that anchors you is better. So for us, for instance, we did the Kilims or the Lums in Greece, but another good example is a series of 4 videos that we did in Antwerp and Bruges. Everything was connected to lace, and that allowed us to talk about trade, to talk about production in the past, and then 3D printed lace done now. So having lace as a core, as our object of inquiry, allowed us to look at the 15th century trade routes making, but also allowed us to talk with this incredibly interesting group of people who 3D print lace now.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for your ideas. They're all very, very interesting. So I think that now you can use your idea and your keywords to set a working title to introduce your video project. I mean,
yeah, we talk about working titles because, of course, the title will change at the end of the project. It's usually the last thing that, I mean, at least in our experience, is the last thing that you settle the title, because then the title has to be the super kind of compressed version of all you have in your video. But in a way, especially if you need to get in touch with people and involve people in a project, you need to have a working title to introduce the project. So that's why we phrase it like this, because of course when we went to Lucia, and it's sad that she's not here, that she could say how we approached her and how we got in touch. Of course, we had to be concise but precise in what we wanted to do and achieve with her. And we also wanted, even though it was a working title, we wanted something that was really captivating. And in this sense, and I'm seeing the answers that you're putting in, it's very good to use bold keywords. Remember that this is a working title that can become the final one, but it's when you sell your project in a way to the people that you want to involve, you want to be bold and you want to be clear and you want to be even uplifting, because of course, I mean, the final aim of storytelling is not, you know, to produce a video and that's it. It's to achieve something with that video, either preserving memory, either showcasing something that nobody else has showcased before, or simply maybe recording something that's very interesting and needs to be crystallized in a video. So I'd say being bold and being as clear as possible, but still exciting with a working title, it's the best way. It's the best way forward. Tales of the Tablets. It's amazing. Sorry, I'm just seeing them as they pop up.
Yeah.
Yes, also it's a good way of tackling a title is, especially if working, is using a question. So can AI generated art be considered as heritage? It's good to be, it's also good as an kind of a organizer or, you know, maker of the video, planner of the video, state that it's an open question. What you want to do is try and answer to the question. So ART, good. Things that needs a bit of explaining when you introduce the project to the people that you want to involve.
Yeah. Yeah, I also think that when you work with creativity and ideate a video is a creative way to express concepts. I think that it's always good to have keywords or words in mind, you know, always to not forget the direction you're taking, because especially when you study a topic or you when you discover things about something, it's always easy to lose direction, and at the end the project must be cohesive and clear. It's not a way to simplify it, but sometimes it's very useful to have a fixed point in mind, and a working title could be useful also for this.
I think we should go to the next step, because we're talking a lot, Anna, as usual.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's probably yeah, this is a bit of a maybe we could not really skip, but it's because it's something clearly identifying people you want to interview requires research maybe and a bit more time, and we hoped we had a bit more time, but maybe, I don't know, Anna, what you think, for the sake of just showing the whole process, just keep in mind that after having your title, you need to go and approach these people. And they might say yes or they might say no. So it's good to think about who you want to involve. And all, as you will see, all these things kind of allow you to really firm up, just finesse that very general idea that you had at the beginning and threw in the Menti. So it doesn't, it doesn't have to be names at this point, but it can be categories, and it can be different people. And then identifying these different people is the hard part. I mean, it takes days and weeks and talks to people to see who is the best person, the best fitted person to kind of get into the narrative and work with you. And we were very lucky with Lucia, because Lucia was amazing in just answering our questions and even going further into topics that were very dear to her and dear to us as well. And the political take on craft, the value, the political and social value of craft on which we landed at the end of the video was very much, we were so glad that actually came out. So for us, Lucia was the perfect fit for that specific interview. And clearly you can see where things go when you talk to teachers, or when you talk to art historians, and when you talk to makers. The response is quite different. So you have to be flexible and elastic in how you actually shape your questions and plan your interview when you go about asking people to kind of contribute to your narrative.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that, wow,
Thank you so much. Yeah, maybe we needed 2 hours.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, audience.
It's so great to see interaction. We were a bit worried about interactions in this, because we don't see you, but it's great to see you on Menti, to see your ideas on Menti.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that we are running out of time, so we must move on.
But we'll share the slides, and the slides show the whole process, so you can actually use them as a guidance to, especially if you're working on a project, as a guidance, so you have all the steps that at least we followed to make the videos.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's Marta behind the kilim in Tyros. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, just quickly, since we have 10 minutes left, I'm not sure if we managed to do the Menti, but we'll definitely at least show you the process. The second phase is the planning, and the planning is divided into 2. The first is preparation. So what do you want to know, and what do you want people to convey, and also what the people involved want to convey. And in this, Lucia could have said everything. She was very precise in where she wanted to go. So what we did was sharing a list of questions, basic questions that we would ask. And then she had the time to think about the responses, but then the way we did it was very natural. So we kind of interviewed her on camera. And a logistic thing on that is that when you want to do an interview, but you don't want the interviewer to be seen or present at the end of the video, you ask the question, and then you prep the people you interview, and tell them to either repeat the question or not just answer yes or no, because that cannot be used in a video. Just so when we asked what is a kilim, she didn't say it is a carpet or a kilim is a carpet. She repeated the question, which made it, I think, very natural and very nice. And that happened quite a lot. And we had to do a few takes on some of the most interesting things that she said, because maybe she forgot to repeat the question, or she forgot to think that she was the only one in the spotlight. And we were just kind of guiding the conversation, really.
Yeah.
See some more visuals.
Yeah.
Went to Greece in a very hot weekend, and we stayed in between wools for days. That was maybe
Yeah.
we planned it a little bit better.
It was the first week of July, so last year. Yeah. I think we are gonna
Keep this.
this
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
session, and we can move on to the creative pre-production.
Yeah.
So yeah, behind the interview and the questions that we thought about to be included in the video interview, we also thought about the physical materials and the objects that we wanted to include in the storytelling. So Marta was talking before about Lukia's kilim, the one that was on the floor of the living room where we set the interview. That kilim was our starting point, and then of course we included it in the video. But then we've also collected a lot of other filming of weavers and ateliers, and also archive material from the Peloponnesian, the Basil Papantoniou Foundation, sorry. So it is very important, once you decide who to interview and what you want to ask to the interview, also where you want to film, thinking about why you decide a specific venue, and also because it's important to think about the background and the setting and the materials you want to be included in the video. I don't know if Marta, you want to add something.
Yeah, and I think that we didn't ask those materials at the beginning, so that was something that came out of the editing process, which is the second bit that we're gonna kind of probably end on today, because once we had all the video, so the what we filmed, we listened to the recording and we cut and pasted what we wanted to have in the video, and that was quite clear, I think, in the short clip that we saw when Lukia was talking about the Heraklia, the little hands, and there were little hands, or the comb. That's where our amazing video maker decided to have the bit of the comb, so you could illustrate words said by a person with bits of filming that you had in other bits, or when she talks about the history of the place and the fact that her great-great-grandfather was the first mayor of the town, showing the town. So this is visual storytelling in action. I mean, you listen to the words and then you create a visual narrative that can illustrate the words and create kind of a varied sort of set of images and journey. So we brought you, let's say the audience, into Lukia's house, but then we just didn't just focus on her. Her voice was guiding us through Leonidio, and then she took us to this amazing place where they were making the kilims, and then so the voice was driving, and what we did was selecting the best images and the best content to illustrate the voice, and this, as Anna said, could be other bits of filming, but also images from archival images, for instance, or other parts, I don't know, the artworks that Lukia makes that were very, yes, Beth, sorry, the other things that that Lukia had in the house that could illustrate her words.
I also think that is very important, and this is something our video maker always tries to remember during the filming days, is that, of course, it's very important to focus on the interview and on the people, but it's also very important to create a contest so that the viewers can understand better what we are trying to communicate, because the eyes must have a good part in in all of this. So it's very important when you interview a person also to remember that you can, it's better to include other materials to support the narration and the storytelling. And in this case, in this specific case, you can see in this slide, we interviewed this lady. She's a weaver, but then we asked her to bring with her some carpets and kilims from her archive. So she showed us the carpets in this beautiful and sunny yard. Yeah.
Yeah, this is just images of us going through materials that we couldn't see before. So we had to see them in location. Anna, I think we have 3 minutes.
Yeah. So just to quickly close the session. When we go through the production of the interview in itself, unfortunately, you'll have to think also about other things, such as the budget, the deadlines, the professionals you'll have to involve. I don't know, for example, a video maker or equipment. It's always a good idea to check the locations and the venues. And of course, there will be something unexpected happening. That's like a rule. Unexpected happenings are always there behind the corner.
Yeah, it's expect the unexpected is the bottom line. Yeah. And whenever it can be, so you find out at the end of the videos, you go home, everything is done, and you find out that the best bit of interview cannot be heard. What do you do? So how do you tackle these things? And this cannot really be taught or predicted. It's something that you have to deal with along the way. But it's probably something that will make your work more interesting. And to just close on the production phase, and in the presentation, again, you have questions kind of guiding you and helping you understanding what we mean by expecting the unexpected and catering for it. The editing part is what probably Anna and I were more involved in, more Anna than myself, at the end. So when we did our filming, everything was done, we went home. This is the hard part, because you have all this material, you would like to do a 2 hours feature film on these things, and you have 10 minutes. So you have to always be clear on the fact that you need to be cohesive, and the narrative need to be cohesive, because the audience can only take for that, and understand what is the tone of voice and the length of the message. And synthesis is very important, and synthesis goes from the editing to the selection of the final title, which has to incorporate everything in a few words, a few striking words. How to cut down, that comes from experience and a lot of listening and cutting down. And then what else do you need? So you saw the intro of that video. So we need logos, covers, music, credits. All these bits that sound boring actually make finesse your work, because one thing is making a good video and another thing is making something that is perfected in a way. So this is us. I think we managed to finish like on the dot. Of course, we could talk more, but we'd be happy to answer any questions here or via email if it's if now it's a bit too late.
Yeah, thank you very much, Marta and Anna, for this really interesting session. Indeed, we're a little pressed for time. I see a question here. If you don't mind just responding in the chat, that would be
we can type.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And I think now I can hand over to my colleague, Georgia, who will be hosting a talk and panel discussion on the power of storytelling for mental health and well-being. So stick around with us. Thanks so much again, Marta and Anna. See you in one of the next sessions.
Hello everyone. I hope that you can all see and hear me. I hope that you're having an inspiring festival so far. I know that I definitely am. My name's Georgia Evans. I'm editorial officer at the Europeana Foundation. I'm a white woman in my 20s. I've got dark blonde hair and I'm wearing glasses. It's my pleasure today to introduce, as Rania just said, the talks and panel discussion on the power of storytelling for mental health and well-being. For this session, we will have 3 speakers, Thijs van Steenbergen, Lisa Rutsaert, and Sam de Schutter. Thijs is a researcher, social worker, and artist working at the Equality Research Collective and the Department of Education, Health and Social Work at the University of Applied Sciences and Art, Ghent. And he will be talking us through the Photo Voice Project Recovery Pathways. We'll then hear from Lisa and Sam, who are from the House of Align Museum in Ghent, and they will be talking about the House van Align Outreach Lab. Lisa is a specialist in inclusion and outreach, and Sam is a historian, anthropologist, and conservator. Please don't forget to keep using the Q&A to put your questions to our speakers as well. And without further ado, I would like to hand over to Thijs to start the presentations. I said without further ado, but also please just check the messages from my colleague Beth Daly in the chat about how we want to run this and some housekeeping as well. So now, really without further ado, I'm delighted to hand over to Thijs to start the presentation.
Yeah, thank you so much, Georgia. Good morning, everybody. Maybe just one more question for you, Georgia. Normally, I send you guys the link to put out the video, to play the video for me.
Yes, I think that should be coming shortly, I hope.
Okay, then I'll just start and see when it arrives.
Great.
I didn't make a visual presentation because the video I want to show you is like the complete photo book or the photo work from the participants from the Photo Voice project. So it's important for me that their work is central and you can feel the images and the stories and the content that's behind the photos. Today, I want to talk to you about, I think, 3 topics. I want to share some insights on what was the project about. Then secondly, what did this way of working mean for people themselves? What did it mean for their recovery? So in the end, how did the Photo Voice, this way of arts-based research, impact their quality of life? And then finally, I also want to share some insights and some thoughts on the topic itself of gender and recovery. All right, I'm so happy to be here. So I think 3 years ago, we started with the Recovery Pathways project. And I think the focus was really on trying to understand for people, and especially women with a drug use history, what does it mean to change and what supports people to maintain that change. So we're not really working with active users. Some of them were still using. Most of them were in recovery for like 3 to 5 or 6 years. And the interesting thing is in this project that we focused also on understanding change from the idea of recovery capital. Yes, at this. Yeah, you can start the video any moment. It's like 8 minutes, so it's a perfect guideline for my own presentation. Yeah, perfect. Oh, thank you so much. An interesting thing about working with the idea of recovery capital is that it is, of course, strongly connects to the idea of social capital. And the idea is that people who possess more recovery capital are better equipped to get into recovery or maintain recovery. Interesting thing was that we saw that these sources of recovery capital as like a personal source, a social source, and a community source are interactive and can have very positive and very negative effects also in recovery. But I'll talk about that a little bit later. Maybe first, come on, the video. It would be lovely to see the photos passing by. And the interesting thing about working with Photo Voice and arts-based research, especially in how we try to engage with it, is that we brought together 6 women with a drug use history. I think we met over the period of 6 months, asking them to take photos in their day-to-day life in relation to certain topics. They came back to us, we made a photo selection together. So each participant individually had a time for conversations with me about find a button to put down. Perfect. Can you close the music on the video? Thank you so much. Okay, now I can continue. Perfect. And the interesting thing is what we saw happening during the research practice is that these group meetings were actually very important for people themselves. For some, it was the first time that they openly discussed their drug use history. For some, it was the first time they connected with others with similar experiences. So we noticed throughout the research project that there really became a group of peer-to-peer support and a place to belong, a place to be heard, a place to be understood, which was actually contributing to their own recovery in a way. So understanding in this way that the research practice in itself became a recovery-oriented place or a supportive environment for people themselves to learn about their own and learn from the stories of others was actually very interesting to see happen during this research process. In that same idea or that same light, we also noticed that this kind of research is not meant to be therapy, but it can be very therapeutic. Because when you look at the core idea of research, and especially when you do this kind of participatory research, is that you're trying to give meaning to their day-to-day experience, that you're trying to understand what's going on in their life, that you're also connecting those day-to-day experience with insights from theory and from practice. So for several participants, it became like also a way about thinking about their own life, where they were at that time and in their life, how their recovery journey has been, but also it has been like understanding for themselves their own strengths and how far they've come, and realizing that they're also not alone in this way of being in recovery. Another interesting aspect, if you think about a research practice and also this kind of arts-based research, is that we also engaged in a kind of identity work. And what do we mean with this identity work is that for many users and drug users and ex-users, there's this kind of lifelong stigma on being an ex-user or being an ex-addict. Also interesting when you look at their day-to-day experience, is a question like, is everything framed from this perspective of your own history? Is everything framed through that lens of addiction? And during one of the meetings, we were talking with one of the photographers, and it became very clear that she told us, I was having discussions with a friend of mine about certain life struggles. And she realized that certain life struggles are just life struggles in general and are not connected to her identity of an addict or an ex-addict. So widening identities and contesting certain identities was very important also during that research practice, and actually contributed again to feelings of normalization and seeing yourself also more than just an addict or an ex-addict. Maybe one more thing about the identity work is I talk about participants, but also talk about photographers. And the interesting thing is throughout the Photo Voice, we also felt as researchers that we engaged or built different relationships with the people that were part of the process. After a while, we started to also acknowledge them as photographers, not just as participants who were taking photos, because we found it also important to support the creative and the artistic process. So we engage with them as photographers who are visualizing their day-to-day experiences. We're not engaging with them as research participants. They became a different kind of role or identity. Some of them actually continued their work in photography after the research project, which was very nice to see. And I think in concluding element for me on thinking about participatory research, thinking about arts-based practices, and especially when you're working around mental health or working around social justice, is really being aware and understanding that your research practice really can influence the quality of life or the well-being of people who are part of it. It can influence their individual change, but it can also impact certain social change. With this project, you're also able to create a nice photo book. We had the luck to create a website, and we had an amazing cooperation with a museum in Ghent, where we were able to show the work, to have a book presentation, but also engage the audience with the photographers of the project. And just to give one small example on how powerful these kind of practices can be, we were preparing for the book presentation, and of course we asked the people who are part of the process, like, do you want to tell something? Let's have a group conversation on stage. And for us, the most important part was to put them central. They're the core of the work. They're the producers in a way of the work. And there was one photographer was like, I'm not really ready to talk about my own history or my own recovery because there's still strong stigma on it. She had some very negative views on herself. And like 10 minutes before the group session started, before the presentation started, she came over like, hey, maybe I am ready to tell something. So we started a group conversation on stage, and I asked one question, and she gets up and starts talking about the importance of acknowledging stigma, but also the importance of people to speak up and to express themselves, to normalize these recovery pathways. So for us, it was a very powerful moment, not only from an individual perspective for her, but also what happened to relation to the audience and the public there was so inspiring. And I think my time is already, how much minutes do I have left, Georgia, just to be sure? Maybe a couple?
Yeah, a couple of minutes. Yeah, please,
okay,
Karen.
perfect.
Thank you.
I'll answer in the chat afterwards because I see there's some questions. And then maybe finally, I want to also share some ideas on what did we learn from the project, really content-wise, on gender, on those recovery pathways, and on recovery capital. And for me, as a white male in his 30s, it was very interesting to work on this topic, because I was also wondering what can I learn about gender, about being a woman in recovery, because I'm a man. So it challenged me really to open up and try to understand like, what's going on there. And that there's especially two topics that really touched me and really got a hold of me. And I think the first one that really realized is, if you look at, especially in Western society, about ideas about womanhood and motherhood and how that relates to drug use or addiction, we see in a great amount of stigma and towards women who use drugs, especially because the idea is that a woman will only fulfill her full destiny when she becomes a mother. So many of our participants felt this kind of pressure to become a mother, to fulfill their role as a woman. And the interesting thing is, from a mother, it's expected to be good and to be caring. And drug use has been seen as something evil or something bad. So these women experienced like that they were being framed as bad women, not only because they were using, but some of them were also contesting the idea of becoming a mother. So we see that how gender plays and works has actually a very great impact on their recovery pathways, and often in negative ways. And maybe one final element on what really touched me also in the project is how current beauty ideals and how it's connected with weight and self-esteem also really impacts those recovery pathways. And I think it is our shared responsibility to keep addressing these cultural norms that really influence people's quality of life and really, how do you say it, are not supportive towards their recovery and like being part of society.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Thijs. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and with the video as well. And my apologies for the confusion about starting.
Don't worry, you're very welcome.
Thank you. Indeed, there's some questions in the Q&A. We also hope to have some time for them at the end. But I will now move on and give the floor to our next speakers. So thank you so much. See you shortly. So for anyone who may have just joined, I'm just going to briefly again reintroduce our next speakers, Lisa Rutsaert and Sam de Schutter, who come from the House of Alain Museum in Ghent. Lisa is a specialist in inclusion and outreach, and Sam is a historian, anthropologist, and conservator, and they are going to be talking through the museum's outreach lab. So I'm delighted to hand over to them. I hope we can see them on the screen shortly to begin the presentation. Ah, yes, there you are. Hi, good morning.
Yeah.
Hi.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam. I'm a white male in his 30s, dark hair, beard, and glasses. I'm the conservator of the House of Alain. The House of Alain is a museum of daily life in Ghent, Belgium. So in our museum, we explore everyday life from the beginning of the 20th century until the present day. So we talk about how people live, how people eat, how people celebrate, relax, love, things like that. And on the first slide, if everything goes well, No, it doesn't. Yes, on the first slide, you can see some items from our collection. So our collection contains objects, photos, films, documents, all pertaining to the heritage or the cultural heritage of everyday life. Within our museum, we have been building an outreach lab. So our outreach lab is our little laboratory where we experiment and where we try to use the cultural heritage of everyday life to have a positive impact on the well-being of people. So our main goal is to design interventions with our cultural heritage, interventions to support people in the broader healthcare sector. Why do we do this? Well, because we actually want to support healthcare professionals to focus more on an integrated approach of well-being. So we kind of want to help shift the paradigm so that health or well-being is not just about how old someone can get, but basically that it is more about how someone wants to grow old. So within our outreach lab, we also mainly focus on elderly people and on elderly care, and we design interventions to help caregivers, formal or informal, within that sector. And on this slide, for example, you can see two people enjoying one of our exhibitions on location in a nursing home. On this next slide, then you can kind of see a schematic breakdown of our outreach lab, which, as you can see, basically has three main pillars. All of those pillars, by the way, entail some kind of storytelling element. But I will now first leave it to my colleague Lisa to talk to you about the first two pillars of our outreach lab.
Yes, hi, good morning. I am also in my 30s, a white woman with glasses and brown hair. I will start with the first pillar. What we focus on are we create programs on our own, so well-being programs with, for example, people who live with dementia and their caregivers, strange and familiar. But we also have another one that I would like to talk about. It's the art of living. It's a trajectory, so a program of 6 sessions. So we see the group 6 times, and it's contains of seniors, people who are older than 65, who are looking for social interaction or being stimulated for more social interaction and discovering or rediscovering old and new interests. It's not open for everyone. It's really looking for people who are truly needed. So we're working together with healthcare centers in our neighborhood to look for people who, for example, in our last program, it was mostly people who are with depression, who lost a partner, who are dealing with chronic pains. So some sort of loneliness. Those people are the ones that we try to reach. And with them, we will use our collection to strengthen their conversations. So we will use all sorts of methodologies depending on how the groups develop. We don't have a ready-to-go package at the beginning of the trajectory. We really follow the rhythm of the group, the needs of the group, the needs of every individual, and depending on that, we will determine what methodology we will use. I think a lot of time, if you think of heritage and healthcare, definitely elderly care, people think of reminiscing, but also object handling, object storytelling, visual thinking strategy. There are so many methodologies with heritage that you can use to strengthen that conversation and to really follow a program with this group. Another one is another focus points of our outreach lab is the support we give to caregivers. We don't want to do it all by ourselves. We also really want to support and strengthen caregivers to use heritage within their own daily work within healthcare. One of them is House of Alain on a Visit. It's like Sam said earlier, traveling exhibitions and activities that care centers can use. They can just pick it up. It's all ready made for them. They can pick it up in our museum and then use it how they want to use it. And it's really focused on, or the activities are really focused on increasing residents' well-being, but also increasing the connection with the family and with the neighborhoods. Because in Belgium, a lot of times it feels like those caregivers or care centers are closed institutions. They don't want to be that, but it feels like that. So we really use these interventions, these exhibitions to open their doors and to really make the neighborhood welcome in those centers, because of course those habitants are also a part of the neighborhood now. And one example of an activity that I wanted to point out is this one. We edited some old videos of cycling competitions. So for those who are a big cycling fan may recognize Eddy Merckx on the screen right now. So we edited cycling competitions from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and those will be projected on a big screen in the residence homes. And the people there can then cycle with the screen and with the heroes of those times. Another one, another way to support the caregivers is we just have a lot of activities that we put online. So every blue button that you can see is an activity that they can download for free. So we have, for example, gymnastics, we have multi-sensory storytelling activity, we have remnants activities, we have guess the sound, so sounds that you can hear on our, or you can find on our websites from objects. They can listen to it and then guess what it is and then have a conversation about those objects and so on. So we really try to give inspiration on how to use heritage without only the reminiscing aspect of it, and use digital ways, for example, a website as a tool. Another one that we have on our website is an app that we created with an organization called Pantalone. And it's actually very simple. It's just some old images, some old movies from our collection that we combined it with classical music. So you can just open the app, show the images while you listen to the classical music. It's a way to, I feel like, to calm down and to relax, to have a form of mindfulness. And then a last one, also a really important one that we try to do is support research. For example, a few years ago, I had some students that I helped, and they were doing a research on virtual reminiscing with residents with dementia. They mainly focused on multi-sensory storytelling. So while the residents had the virtual glasses on, I don't really know how to say this in English, those glasses, they were also being told a story. So those stories linked with the images that they saw. And meanwhile, they also could smell things that were connected to the story or touch things, or there is definitely still some work to it, but I feel like this college, Achtervelde Hogeschool, this college is developing and keep developing this methodology because there's a lot of positive impact on this use. So I'm also really looking forward and keeping supporting this one. There you go. Those are the two first pillars of focus points that we focus on mainly on the outreach lab. And I'm going to give for the last one back to my colleague Sam.
Thank you. So the last pillar is our collection library, or what we call our collection library, which is actually a handling collection. So it's a collection of objects that are meant to be touched, that are meant to be handled, that are meant to be smelled, or whatever. So on the next slide, you can see a picture of shelves containing all sorts of objects, and then there's a sign that reads, "Please do touch." So you can see that the collection library is a completely different collection than the normal museum collection, and it has a completely different goal than the museum collection. The idea that these objects can be used in activities centered on well-being and centered on care And in this way, they are actually used to, for example, start a conversation or to help people tell stories. So they can be used in some of the methodologies that Lisa already mentioned, for example, object storytelling or multisensory storytelling, where objects, but also the sensory experiences that they trigger or the emotions that they trigger all serve to tell stories, to start conversations. So it's a completely separate collection from the museum collection with a completely different goal as well. So there's also an online component to this collection library. So first of all, what you see on the screen now is a screenshot from a project that we are now almost ready to launch, and where we use a crowdsourcing platform where people can go through the collection library, look at the items within the collection library, and they can add information to them. So they can date these objects, or they can identify these objects. But also important, they can add memories, or they can tell stories or experiences about those objects. And in this way, they can really enrich our collection library, and they can enrich the stories behind the objects that are in the collection library. And then second of all, of course, there is also our normal museum collection. And in this museum collection, we also put a lot of effort into the digitization of that collection, and we try to put as much as we can from the collection online. So here you can see some screenshots from our website, where a huge part of our collection can be viewed online. And then this online collection, this online museum collection, can actually also be used next to the collection library to basically further enhance the stories that can be told through the objects in the collection library, and to give some more information, to give some more color to the objects from the collection library. So this is basically our presentation. And this is what we do with the Outreach Lab. A lot of it is about storytelling. Some of it is about online storytelling, but we mainly focus on live face-to-face interactions, and everything that we do online is important, but it serves to complement and to strengthen and enhance the things that we do live and that we do online. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your presentation and for sharing your experiences. That's absolutely fantastic to hear about, and some great photos as well. Thank you everyone who's been putting your questions in the chat. We do have a few that I will put to you now from the audience. Thank you very much, Thijs. I've seen also that you have answered one in the chat. So we may come back to that if there's time, but thank you so much. So I have a question for you, Lisa and Sam, which is from Claudia Porto. And they have asked, can you talk about the best background of a group responsible for a program like the one that you're outlining? So they said, I mean, curators, social workers, psychologists, but also members of the museum public, artists or community leaders. So yeah, who's the best to be responsible for a program like the one that you've outlined? Thank you.
I think there is not one answer to that. It really depends on your group, and it also really depends on what do you want that the group will do afterwards. For the one that I explained, The Art of Living, I myself am a social worker. My colleague is also a social worker, the person who I did this with. But then also we have healthcare promoters from the neighborhood healthcare center. They were also there. So those are the main people that really how do you say this, will guide the entire program. But important is I have a lot of support of, for example, the curators, the people who do the research, the people that work in the museum as well. So it's a team effort, but I'm the one who sees the group, I'm the one who's guiding the group, and so on. Yes.
Yeah. Great, thank you so much. So almost, would you say, interdisciplinary in kind of how you approach it as well then?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
So it's interdisciplinary then, because you have colleagues from the museum and colleagues from the community as well.
Yes, I also feel it's important because a lot of time I notice that because my colleagues don't really see the group, they don't really see the impacts, that they aren't really always involved in it. That's why I find it really important to show pictures and to really show what happens with the group, give them almost presentations and emails of thank you so much. And because of that, they feel really involved, much more involved. And you can feel in the next program, they are jumping around to help us help again. I do need them also for just like last minute practical issues. Like I had a researcher that picked up a person who couldn't get to the museum anymore, and so on.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. The questions are coming thick and fast, which is fantastic, but I also just wanted to bring Thijs in to ask and just really pick on that, what you've said about kind of this involvement of different groups, and to see if from your perspective that's also something that you kind of took on for the work that you're doing. What was kind of the group composed of, and how did that work?
I'll just give the official way we worked is there was a database on people in recovery who were part of an international European research. So we had a certain way in. At the same time, we noticed that it was very hard or challenging to reach a diverse group, especially if you think about people with a migration background. They remain very challenging in our research setting to get a hold of and to get into like a good relationship with. So in a way, we reached people with different drug use histories and different backgrounds. But at the same time, we had a very, very homogeneous group in a way. There was one person who was living in poverty or had a history of living in poverty who was amazingly inspiring for the project and really helped us deepen the understanding of certain dynamics of exclusion and stigma in society. So I think it's a permanent challenge to try to find how do you say it, a group to work with that's representative for them. Also the challenges they're working with, but it remains so hard to really get connected with those communities also that are important for the research.
Yeah, thank you so much for bringing your perspective in. Thank you. I have another question which is for Sam and Lisa, and it does really nicely bring us also back to the topic of storytelling, which is what we're here to discuss and celebrate. So this question from Isabel Borrego. Could you explain in more detail how people can contribute to describing and telling stories about the objects that you have online? How do you do that, and how is it moderated?
So basically it's a crowdsourcing platform. So you enter the website and you can browse our collection library. You can see all the items that are in there. You can click on one, see if there's already any information about it. And then there's information that you can add. There's certain fields that are predetermined, like the title, what's it used for, when was it used. And then there will be a free field where you can fill in, stories or memories or experiences about that object. The information then comes in, and then it's basically curated by us. So we have to say, whether it's correct or not, whether it's acceptable or not. And then, of course, there's the elements, as I said, we're about ready to launch it. So it's a great online platform. But again, here, I think face-to-face interaction will be necessary in order to motivate or enthuse people to contribute to this project. Because if you just put it online, I don't think anyone will be very motivated to contribute to it. So it's it will be important to determine which groups we want to reach and have live introductions with them, where we explain the project and where we can talk to them about the need or the idea behind this project.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you so much. And yeah, so then it's that real balance between the kind of digital interaction and also building face-to-face connections as well. And actually that idea of connection is also something I want to pick up on, because there was a question for Thijs in the chat, which was about whether addiction is a failure of connection, and you've answered that in the chat and kind of said you think maybe it's part of it but not the full story. But in terms of kind of creating those connections, what role do you think storytelling can play in that and the project that you're working on?
It's a very interesting question. Thank you, Georgia, because I think from our project we learned that the storytelling can be like a double-edged sword. If you look at those environments where there's an understanding or an accepting towards drug use or recovery or addiction, if people are able to tell their story and feel heard and acknowledged in their story, then it can be very, very powerful, can be very connecting, and it can bring people close together and understanding that they're both humans. And the identity work I was talking about, looking at not as a human, as an addict, but as a human, it brings people closer. At the same time, many of our participants talked about those environments and contexts where they try to share their story because they want to be honest about themselves, their life history, and the stories that made them to who they are today. And when you then receive a negative reaction or experience stigma, then it's very challenging to keep on telling your story.
Yeah.
The same with making your content public. You don't always have the control or power over how the audience hears the story or what they learn from the story. So I think we're also evolving towards the idea that storytelling is not enough. We also have to work on story listening or story weaving, where people connect their own stories to others. So the story becomes something shared and not something to be consumed by another. So we see it has an amazing potential. At the same time, you have to be very careful and very attentive towards how those stories are being heard and read and what's being learned from those stories.
Thank you. I love that idea of story weaving. That's a really lovely one to pick up on as well, and the importance of doing that as well. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So another question, and I guess it links again very nicely to this idea of who's reading these stories or who's picking up on them. And this is a question for Sam and Lisa. So you kind of I asked about the online activities and how you moderate them, but do you have a sense of who is using the tools online? So from kind of who is submitting into them and how they found that as well?
We don't have numbers of how much it's being downloaded or not that, but when I give workshops when I go to those care centers, I do hear a lot of, oh yeah, I saw this on your website, or I've used this one, or I used that one. So it's more face-to-face that I do hear it, that it's being used. So it's not like I have exact idea of it, but I don't know how important. I am a little skeptical in saying this, but still, it doesn't really matter that much to me. It's there, and whoever wants to use it can use it. That's the main idea behind it. Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. And I mean, actually, this because you're saying that kind of it's the reaction that you get, in person when you go and do these programs, that is really the feedback, and that actually links very nicely to another question that we've received, which was what was the first reception from kind of the older people who you involved in this program?
Yes.
What was it like? What was their reaction?
I think it's also a little bit what Tess just said, that feeling of recognition, the fact that they had a place where they could tell their story, where their story was important, was very, very empowering. So, for example, there are people who were quite scared to talk to their doctors, for example, or the nurses about what they were going through, but because storytelling and the interventions that we did, they were strengthened to now talk to the doctors about the things, how they felt, and they found words on how to tell it. Another one that I see now, because we see the group still every month, that I find really strengthening, is that they really become a group of friends. They have a lot of fun together, and a lot of people see each other also next to the activities that we organize, and even if they have a problem, they find each other to talk about this problem. Or so me as a facilitator, I can very slowly walk away, because the group is so strengthened now to each other that that we are not needed anymore. And that, I think, is the most beautiful goal that we reached with this group, because like I said, this group was started with all sorts of form of loneliness, and now they have this group where they feel strengthened and feel empowered, and that's don't need us anymore to feel less lonely.
Yes, That's fantastic. That's really heartwarming to hear as well. Like, what a lovely result to have. That's amazing. Thijs, I saw you really nodding in that as well, and I just wonder if that's you kind of had similar feelings about the reception of your programs as well.
Yeah, it just made me realize that we often underestimate that people do not always feel safe or strong enough to express themselves and really express themselves. Like these kind of projects can really create the environment where people can really show themselves and share their stories. And in that way, the idea of recognition and being heard and being seen is a really important part for our work on social justice and supporting people. So I was very like, I understand completely that how empowering it can be to be like being part of those projects, because people don't always feel, sometimes, especially in elder population, they often feel also lonely. So creating those places and spaces where people can really express themselves, where their expression is being supported and connected with others, I think is really crucial for mental health in general. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. It's really great to see these kind of threads coming up in this session about empowering people to tell their stories, about kind of the way that storytelling can help people connect with others. And it's really fantastic kind of to hear the ways that goes across the work that you're all doing as well. We do still have a couple more minutes, so this is the last chance to get your question in the chat if you had one. But I also just wanted to kind of invite our speakers, if you have any kind of final reflections you'd like to share on the work that you're doing, or kind of something you've been inspired by today. Yes, if you do, audience, if you have a question, please, you still have a couple of minutes to put it in the chat. But Thijs, please.
Maybe one final, how do you say it, consequence of this way of working. We often talk about research projects and what they mean for people and how you can work in a participatory way or work on social justice and support individual change. But I think this project also made us think about our own system as a research collective. And for example, we also, our reflex has become, okay, but who benefits from this research? Who benefits from this project? For example, if you think about going to conferences to talk about the work, it's always the researchers who go there and talk about the work. So like a year ago, we went to Paris and we realized that, well, maybe we should redistribute some material resources and take one of our photographers with us to talk about the work. So if you think about also storytelling, about representation, so how far do you go with it? And from that point onward, to try to integrate people with experience and also try to cooperate more in a durable way with the people who are part of our research projects and what we do in our research center. So like really trying to think about that impact on a more longer run and integrate those stories and integrate those people in what you're doing in a more fundamental way, I think is also crucial to work towards, for us, social justice and more participation in what we do in a society.
Brilliant, thank you. Yeah, participation and representation is definitely something to take away there. Thank you so much. Sam, Lisa, what would you like to add?
Maybe I just want to re-emphasize what Lisa has mentioned earlier, that for us as a museum, doing this kind of work is something quite new and something quite unfamiliar, in the sense that we are a cultural heritage institution, and we are kind of drilled to think about cultural heritage as something that needs to be preserved and that needs to be cared about, but not something that can be used for care or as something that can be caring. And that is a really interesting way to look at a collection and to look at cultural heritage from a totally different perspective. Especially as a conservator, and so it's really important, and I think that we are doing this really well within our museum, that there's a support from the whole team, and that this is something that is carried by everyone that's working here.
Yeah, if I may add, because I feel like healthcare is mainly focused on the physical and mental care, but social care is equally important. I think Corona has definitely proven that. And it's exactly on that point of healthcare, social care, that storytelling and heritage and art can have a huge support, can be a huge support. I think if we can put the physical, mental and social on the same level, I think we can have this huge support for the healthcare center, and that is the role that we need to play and that we have to do. Yes.
Thank you so much. I found those all really inspiring words to end on. Thank you so much for yeah, such an informative, inspiring, and warm session as well, and for sharing the wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. This was already a great set of morning sessions. I hope you enjoyed those as well. We're going to continue with a presentation by me, Jolan Weitz. I'm a collections editor at Europeana, and I'll let Maggie introduce herself in a little bit as well. For the audio description, I'm a cis white man in my 20s. I have long brown hair and a beard, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt. So today we'll be talking about Europeana a little bit more. I'm sure you've heard the word throughout the day, but if you're wondering what the hell is Europeana even, and how can it help you in creating stories, and how can it maybe even be a platform for you to publish and share those stories, those are the questions we'd like to answer today. So getting into the thick of things, this is our title, How to Contribute Stories to Europeana. So if you don't know what Europeana is yet, we are a European Union initiative. We're being funded by the European Commission since 2008 with the goal of basically giving access to all of the digital cultural heritage that galleries, libraries, archives, and museums throughout Europe have digitized, and we want to make that accessible for everyone online for free in an interoperable format. So you see a few screenshots and GIFs of the website coming by. There's a lot of amazing content from all over Europe that you can find right on europeana.eu. That content comes from over 120 partners from across Europe, from all of the countries colored in that you can see on this map. And so we mostly partner with GLAMs, so that means galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, but also aggregators, nonprofit organizations, and private companies. In that huge database that we have, there are now almost 60 million objects, pieces of content that are cultural heritage items that are in a lot of different languages, talk about a lot of different content topics, and anyone can access them online for free. Now, reusing them is the second step. Once you find an object that you really want to use, we find it very important to be very clear on copyright, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that later in this session. If you look at the amount of objects that you can totally freely reuse, that means download it, stick it on a t-shirt, sell it on Etsy, put it on a canvas bag, share it with your friends, remix it into a GIF, that's almost half of our total amount of objects. So 47% is completely freely reusable. So that's almost 25 million objects that you can reuse. If you expand that idea of reuse to some kind of reuse, so that might mean that you have to attribute the author, or that you maybe cannot use it in a commercial setting, or that you cannot make a derivative of it, almost 72% of our content is available for some kind of reuse. So that means that we have a huge sea of objects from all over Europe that you can use in your stories and in your narratives. And we do create a bunch of different narratives in a bunch of different formats. In the bottom left, you'll see some of our stories. These are blogs and galleries. We also have more multimedia content that you heard about earlier today when we talked about the Crafted project. We have a bunch of videos that are online on our Europeana YouTube account. And also GIFs are something that are very near and dear to our heart, and we make a lot of them and share those a lot as well. That was my introduction. I'll hand it over to you, Maggie, to talk more about how you can contribute to Europeana.
Thank you, Jolan. Let me try to check the slides. Hello, everyone. I'm Maggie. I'm a content and exhibition coordinator at Europeana Foundation. And I'm a white Polish woman in my 30s. I have short blonde hair and I'm wearing glasses. So now you heard a little bit more about Europeana from Jolan. So I would now like to introduce you to a couple of things that we do. Firstly, to the editorial formats that we're using. Second, to the way how we implement storytelling in these formats. And then we will move to a little bit basic, some rules on copyright and licensing that you might find helpful. And finally, how you can contribute to Europeana. If that works. Okay. It works, great. So Europeana is an organization, and my team in particular aims to raise interest in cultural heritage online. And we do that by publishing interesting editorial about cultural heritage. And as Jan already mentioned, we work collaboratively with partners to present storytelling on diverse topics and from a variety of sources. And in this slide, you can see an example of one of our formats, exhibitions, that this particular one we just published in March as part of the Women's History Month. It's called A Female Lens, and it's focused on how women use the power of photography to express themselves and take control of their public image. So my colleague Alex is putting all the links into the chat if you would like to follow them. Okay. At this point, we have around 1,000 pieces of editorial published. It showcased collections of hundreds of institutions, mainly from Europe, but not only. And as you saw, you saw the link in the chat. You can browse for them. If you go to Europeana Stories, there are different tags that you can explore and see topics that are being grouped around that editorial. Yes, so we publish in 3 main formats: exhibitions, blogs, and galleries. So let's just take a look at each of. Okay, and we start with exhibitions because they are my favorite. As the exhibition coordinator, I'm especially, I would say, invested in creating them. So exhibitions, the formats are kind of self-explanatory, but just to let you know how we define them. The exhibitions for us are the long-form extensive narratives, and we hope that they will engage readers with text and different media, images, sound recordings, films. And in the exhibitions, we sometimes there's one story, but very often we tell multiple stories connected within the topic in order to make it as informative as possible. And we aim to make the text exhaustive, but try to have the experience of following the exhibition as light and as engaging as possible. And you might not know, but today is Europe Day, and our partners from European Parliament have just published this morning an exhibition about the European Parliament and the 70 years anniversary of it, called 70 Years of European Democracy in Action. So that's like the brand new exhibition, if you want the scoop on the latest publication. Let's move to the blogs. So the format we use most often are probably blogs. I'm sure you are familiar with the format itself. For us, blogs are designed to tell a story, and can be story of individual artists, of particular artwork, or maybe even an institution. And the blog could also answer a specific question for the audience, or they can highlight a history of a certain topic or theme. They can relate to a topical contemporary issue or reflect real world exhibitions, even displays. So the example of the topical contemporary issue, gosh, I lost the word that I just said a second ago. Anniversary, for example, like we do with the European Parliament. You can also have a blogs connected with particular artists that we try to promote on the anniversary of their birthday, for example. And finally, our third format, galleries. These are sets of 20 to 50 items about a certain theme, and they are showcasing like curated visual material that focus on a single defined topic. So again, it can be an artist, a type of an object, or time, place, but there's a limitation of the context that we can provide here. So it's very visual, and it's specifically connected about showcasing maybe different, the same item in a different context, for example, from a different institutions, that you can just, you know, to see an overview within the one page. And next to our curated galleries, which we promote, we also have we publish them and try to promote them every Monday as a gallery of the week. So next to those staff curated galleries, we recently added the feature of creating galleries by the public. So by you. So anyone above 13 can have an account, save their preferred content, and create their own galleries. And we also regularly review those galleries. We choose the most interesting ones, and we try to feature them on the homepage and in our social media. So let me just, I think this is a very useful feature that can come useful to you later if you're, for example, collecting material for your story. So let's just do a quick run on how to do that. Yeah, I see that Alex is mentioning that we also feature galleries not only on our social, not only on the website, but also on our social media and in our monthly newsletter. So if you would like to curate a gallery, here's the link to the manual. Alex just posted it in the chat. If you go there, you just need to create an account. That's basically the only complicated step of the process, I would say. And you're welcome to start already if you want, because we're gonna get a little bit of time later for doing that. And as soon as you have an account, you are free to collect all your favorite items. And by just going to the Europeana website, typing the keyword that you're interested in here, and then this animation, I put it fruit, looking for some, I think I was looking for still life specifically, but I found this lovely painting of the vegetable market. And if whenever you are logged into the account, you just need to check the item, click a plus sign underneath, or on the search, it's in the right top corner, and that's the only thing you need to create a gallery. And when you do that, you will have an option to give the gallery the name, a title, and provide a short description. So this is the space to provide the context. The galleries are multilingual, so as the whole website basically. So whatever is your default language for the browser, that's the default language for the gallery. So you can display it in, you know, in your native language. You can write a description in your native language, and we are also gonna, if you would like to submit the gallery and promote it and feature it on the Europeana, we will make sure that it is available also in English and in your native language. So, and if you want if you want the gallery to be featured by us, it's basically a click of a button. We are reviewing them quite regularly, and hopefully you can promote it to our audience, as Alex mentioned. And any item you found in Europeana, you can either add them to the galleries or you can even just save them as your favorite for later before you're going to create a particular gallery about it. So yes, this is the like option. So if you want to just like the item, there's a hard button, pretty self-explanatory. So what if we take just 3 minutes maybe, if some of you would like to create some galleries. If you don't want to create galleries right now, I would just ask you to put in the chat what would be the topic that you would like to have a gallery about. And I come up with a couple of, yeah, sorry. So there's a link again, in case you're looking for it, but I come up with some examples for inspiration. So we have galleries about basically anything from the sunny weather and the European capitals of culture to like beautiful views, which is I really like this gallery. I think this one was created by one of the projects, but we have a very similar one that we use for making a Zoom backgrounds, if I'm correct, Yolan, at certain point of the early pandemic times.
Yeah, that was very popular at the start of the pandemic. Everyone was super into Zoom backgrounds, so we curated some nice, landscape-oriented things that fit perfectly in your Zoom window.
Yeah, that was really really cool visuals. And Yolan, I'm going to ask you a question, just waiting for people to put stuff in chat. Just throw some ideas, like dogs and art is my latest latest exhibition, I think. Sorry, a gallery. Yolan, what is your favorite gallery that you encounter on our journey?
That's a really hard one. I didn't know the questions were going to be this hard. I actually was looking at the galleries that I have in my personal kind of account recently, and one that I really like, I'm going to share in the chat, is on bookbinding. It's maybe, I think if you look at the images kind of separately, they might look pretty boring, I'd say, because it's just images of people in a workshop doing some work. But if you put them all together, you really get this amazing view of the whole process of coming from an unbound manuscript to a completely finished bound book. And that's what I really like about this gallery, is that it tells a story with all of the different images put together. Is it my favorite? I don't think I can choose between my children, but I really like it.
I do understand it. It's hard to choose the favorite one.
Exactly. I love that you've picked a few that are very salient for Europe Day in your examples, like the European capitals of culture and the European landmarks.
Yeah, these are just the first examples. I'm going to move to the next one. Maybe someone would feel it inspiring, but I just wanted to see what's in chat. I see that Beth would like to make a gallery with the most castly castles, which I love as an idea. We definitely can make it.
Most Game of Thrones castles that you can, yeah.
Alex is mentioning the series about colors. Yes, we have galleries on multiple colors. We have one about blue with all the blue items. We have one with pink, one with yellow, green, and I think red. I might forget some colors. Alex, if you can put maybe just a link to all the galleries in the chat so people can get inspired. And I see a question from Isabel. Does it matter the language you search in Europeana?
Great question.
Yes. No, for most of the part. You should. We have quite multilingual labels for the content, and we make sure that, especially in terms of our entities, the content is translated. So theoretically, no, but with some specific keywords, you might find that the searches in some language might provide different results. So it's not a very, it's not like, it doesn't work for everything.
Yeah.
But I think, just to give you an example, if you look for dogs, you're gonna also find like dogs in German and in Dutch and probably in Polish.
Yeah, to be able to catch everything, what I mostly do is use the term in my local language, which is Dutch. So I would search for hond, and I would also search for dogs just in case that there's anything that I missed that is easier found in English.
Yeah, there are some descriptions that might not be picked up so well, so it's worth checking different language if you know that it might be interesting content. I'm just gonna move to more examples just to give you like maybe 2 more minutes. This one has like a Japanese printmaker art, which I really like. We have a great collection of different Japanese galleries. They're really nice. So go check them out. We have one with the stamps and also one about voting in elections and one about parenting in art.
There's a few questions I'd like to answer before we move on. One is
yes,
by...
I cannot see the Q&A, so I'm going to ask you to like pick it up.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm just looking at what is in chat right now. So Vasia asks, what is the difference between a public and a published gallery? That's also a good question. A public gallery is a gallery that is public to you, so you can share the link with anyone over WhatsApp or whatever, and they would be able to see what is in the gallery, but it is not visible for a random person that goes to Europeana.eu. They won't see your gallery. A published gallery means that you have sent your gallery to us. If you click the publish button, it goes to our team and we review it to see if it's featureable on our homepage, if it's interesting and fits our guidelines. If it does, we will publish it. And that means that people that go to Europeana.eu and start browsing through our stories and our galleries might see your gallery there and click on it and see it, even if you haven't sent the link to them. So public means you can share it with your friends, and published means it's published to the world on Europeana.eu. And then there's one more question by Annemiek, who asks about the feedback button. So the feedback button goes to our Europeana development team. So it does not go to the owner of the gallery. It goes to us and is mostly used to provide feedback if you see an issue on the website itself. If there's a bug that you encounter, you could use the feedback button. But mostly due to GDPR, we aren't allowed to put you in contact directly with the creator of a gallery. So there's no way to contact gallery owners currently.
But if there's an issue that you want to report about the gallery, that's also going to go, it's going to go through the development team, but it might come to us, and we can see if there's, if there's any issue that we can fix that you notice. In terms of display, I'm gonna click one more time to even more examples. This one I'm very. I was trying to find a diverse set of ideas. So this one are about the textile industry and the Industrial Revolution, how the industrial heritage is depicted in art. The one about ports and harbors, and one about Grand Hotel Europa that was created by, I think, one of the project partners from Common Culture. I see the question about the color collection. It's a color series in the galleries, and I think I cannot access chat at this moment for some reason, because when I'm controlling the slides, I see less of.
Alex has.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Alex is on top of the thing, so thank you so much. So this is the link to the colors. I find them really amusing and quite inspiring if you're looking for some. They're full of like not weird but quirky items. So. Okay, feel free. I mean, if I'm speaking and you want to work on the gallery, feel free to share with us your creation later. And I'm gonna move now to my next point. So now that we have now that you know a bit about the formats we use to publish the editorial. As Ilan mentioned in the beginning, we don't publish stuff only ourselves, but we provide the platform for all the memory institutions across Europe to cooperate and highlight their own stories. And every time we publish a piece of editorial written by us or a partner, we really wanted to serve a purpose. And the purpose is usually one of the 4 objectives that we would like to achieve. We would like to encourage audiences to discover and engage with collections about European cultural heritage. We want to tell them compelling stories about these collections, about the people and the objects. We want to showcase Europeana as a diverse and rich source of these collections. And we want to maximize our reach, of course, with social media marketing. And as you can see, one of these objectives is telling compelling stories. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake. Okay. And through these compelling stories, we would like to connect with our audience. And we believe that successful storytelling, and that is true whether it's digital or not, involves emotional engagement. And I'm sure you know that cultural heritage domain is filled with like interesting stories, but the challenging part is to make them engaging and relatable to public. So 2 years ago, my lovely colleague Beth, that you could see in the chat this morning, she ran a task force on storytelling, and I had the pleasure and honor to be part of it. And together we met with other cultural heritage professionals, trying to pinpoint what would be these common themes on stories that appeal to us, and how can we summarize it into some useful output. And after months of investigating, we came up with what we call 7 storytelling tips. These tips are designed specifically for people working with cultural heritage. But even if you're not working with the heritage like professionally, but you would like to incorporate more stories in your work, or you'd like to submit a blog to Europeana, for example, I think you can find them useful. So I will just go very quickly through them, but let me just go into maybe more visually pleasing format. Yes. So the first one is be personal. We find that personal stories bring the past to life and help people relate to history on an emotional level. Be informal but expert. People want to learn, but the jargon might put them off. So avoid heavy academic language. But as long as your content is well informed, the format can be quite playful. And third, that's a very important one, tell hidden stories. For heritage professionals, this is the call to focus on collections that do not get enough attention, is to try give voice to a range of people and communities. And as you probably realized, in Europeana, we care about the inclusivity in our publication, which Ilan will talk even more about later. But it doesn't have to be only about these underprivileged communities. In like Europeana context, you could, for example, submit a blog about the local history or a tradition that is not well known on the European scene, but very close to your heart. 4, that one is to remember, illustrate your point. A key strength of cultural heritage sector is the wealth of its material, the visual imagery that it provides, and this can be used to powerful effect in storytelling. In Europeana, we use it mostly to break up the long narratives, as I mentioned before, in order to like enrich the experience, but also to make online reading more digestible. And that's a very good point for the specifically for digital storytelling. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the images later, 5, signpost your journey. That's another one super important in digital storytelling. You need to have a clear sense of both the narrative and the digital structure, and try to make sure to display checkpoints along the way. So this will help people to keep people on track and to better capture their attention. 6, be specific. This is about finding and keeping your focus. Marta and Anna from Crafted Project this morning were talking about a similar thing when creating a video. They were talking about finding an anchor for themselves. So one idea for that could be ask yourself, is there a particular image, character, maybe an event that lies at the emotional heart of the story you want to tell. And 7, final, be evocative. So try to invite the viewer to imagine an event or place and place them themselves within the scene. So you can use descriptive terms and, as I already mentioned, imagery in your stories. That was that were the tips. And if you would like to practice the skill, especially the one about being more evocative, Beth is running a workshop tomorrow focused entirely on writing. So join us tomorrow morning. And for the last advice on developing your text, here are where you can start. So before you begin, think about the story you want to tell. What is the reader going to learn from this particular piece? And if you are interested in submitting your ideas for a blog, please check the Europeana stories first, pick some examples, and you can see better what is the structure that we are working with. It's going to be super useful. And this, I'm not going to go through the slide. This is tons of resources. Also, the infographic of storytelling tips in 6 different languages. I put it all on slides, and you will get access to the slides later. So just so you know, you can find the tips in as a slide deck, as a video, short, long. We run also a workshop with, oh, what happened? Sorry. We run a workshop with speakers from New York Times, National Archives, and Metropolitan Museum. When they talk about their own storytelling activities, that's super interesting. And I linked that too. And we have more and more resources on the Medium page. Okay. So now that we talk a bit about the text and maybe a bit of a structuring your story, let's go back to the 4th tip for storytelling. If you remember, it's illustrate your point. And as you probably know, when you are looking for material to illustrate your blog, presentation, t-shirts, you will encounter an issue of copyright. So let's just jump quickly into this pool of issues. Let's start with what is copyright. So copyright is a legal protection that grants exclusive rights to its owner to use, copy, distribute, adapt a particular work of art without the permission. And it was designed to ensure the preservation of the work's integrity and appropriate attribution for the authors. So if you produce an original expression of an idea, this can be always protected by the copyright. And that of course includes text, audios, videos you produce. But because we are just trying to keep it simple for the purpose of this talk, we're gonna just focus on the images. So on one hand, we have a copyright, while on the other, we have public domain, where all the works that are not protected by the copyright anymore end up. And this is the publicly available material from which new creations and knowledge can grow freely. And you can use it for all your new ideas. It's a very important fact that copyright is not forever. It's just to protect the author's ownership and the integrity of the work for a specific time. And it is complicated, especially when we enter the digital domain, it gets even more complicated. And it gets double complicated when we start to deal with more than one country legislation. So as a general rule, for many countries, the copyright expires 70 years after the death of the author, but it depends on the country, so it's not always the case. Another general rule is that the digital object, that is the exact representation of a physical object. So, for example, a scan of a painting or a digitized book. This representation should be treated the same as the original, meaning whenever you digitize an object, it should not produce a new copyright protection. However, that's a general rule. In some countries, this is not the case. So you might find online that the digital representation of a medieval manuscript is protected by copyright, while the manuscript was created even before the copyright even existed. So these issues vary from country to country, and Europeana tries to make it as easy as possible for all of you to use the images and to make sure that you know what you can do with the items available on our website. So that's why all our digital objects have a right statement. And you can see that right statement at the bottom left corner. Here it is on the slide. And if the item is reusable, you will also be able to download it, which you can see on the right bottom corner. And whenever you try to download it, you get this message that provides you with the attribution and in a very, very easy way to copy it. And if you're going to remember one thing from this presentation, let it be this. Whenever using a audiovisual material, any kind of media that you haven't created yourself, please always attribute the author and the source that you found it. And for some licenses, this is like a legal requirement. But even when it's not, this is just like the best practice. So we try to make it easy for you. And the easiest way to find the image on Europeana would be to just type the keyword, as we tried that before when creating galleries, and then use the filter. So we have this filter that provides you with the option, can I use this material? And if you choose yes, that's going to be your safest option. The other filters, yes with conditions, maybe seek permission, are also, you probably can use them, but you need to be more careful and check what is the exact limitation. So the safest option, click, can I use it? Yes, you will get this, you will get material that are either in the public domain or in CC0, which means that they've been dedicated to public domain, or material that are marked as CC BY and CC BY SA, which are the open license for the Creative Commons. This is like the simplified view. It's what I would call like a safe bet. But again, it doesn't mean that the other licenses you cannot use that material. You can, very often in Europeana, we basically can use a majority of them because they're part of the website. But if you are thinking about using them for your own purposes, the material on the left, you can do anything, basically anything, as long as you provide the attribution. So you can share them on social media. You can make them into a GIF or a collage, or you can make T-shirts and sell them online, everything that you wish. let me look at the time. We have only 2 minutes, so I'm just gonna jump. If you are more interested, we can talk more later about the Creative Commons and how the license differ. I'm just gonna jump quickly to show you that the Creative Commons license are created to make it a little bit easier to share the copyrighted material. And if you just learn the 4 elements, you know this short phrases like CC BY SA, they stop being so, you know, weird and complicated. So basically, CC BY, which is Creative Commons, BY means attribution. So every material you need to always attribute the author, as I mentioned, and the source. If it has a SA element, then it means it's share alike. So if you create a new material based on that, like another GIF or a collage, it needs to be shared within the same license that Creative Commons provide. Non-commercial, you cannot make money on this. This is what NC means. And ND means non-derivatives. So you are not allowed to transform that image into something else. So you cannot make GIF, you cannot crop it into different, you know, things and just post it online as a new work. And yes, I'm gonna skip for licensing and just move to Yolan maybe, because I think, yes, we are running a little bit out of time, so.
Yes, I'm afraid we'll have to wrap up shortly. I think we want to leave you with one last call to action. Before we go, it might have been a bit of a deluge of information and resources, but I want to make sure that you know that if you look at the resources that we put in chat that Alex put there for you to read, it will be a lot easier to digest. Tamara, let's go back to the presentation and not do the Menti, just so that we stay in time. If you look through all of those resources and those guidelines, it will be a lot easier for you to understand exactly what we're talking about, what copyright you can use, what content you can use and what you cannot use. So I want to go to the last slide, if possible. Okay. Great. So we hope that we've given you the tools that you need to create stories either for yourself or for Europeana. One last thing I want to leave you with is that we are trying to make our platform more open and reusable for everyone. And that includes allowing people not only to create and share galleries, but also create and share blogs. So if you follow the link that is on screen right now, or if you're tech savvy, you can scan the QR code. You'll go to a pitch page where you can share the stories that you want to write, you want to talk about with us. We also have an editorial grants program that is attached to that. So if you are either from an underrepresented community, or if you are talking about a topic that is underrepresented in our editorial backlog currently, you'll be able to apply for a grant, which allows you to get remuneration of 200 euros for a blog of about 400 to 500 words. And in that way, we want to support underrepresented communities and lift up voices that otherwise we wouldn't hear in our editorial. So I'm looking forward to reading all of your great blog pitches, all of your editorial pitches, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot more opportunities to create and share stories throughout the Digital Storytelling Festival. So please take the resources that we have provided you with and stay in contact with us if you have any questions. If there's any questions that we haven't answered in chat, you can either contact us in those email addresses that you see on screen, or we will answer them in chat shortly. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Maggie, for your clear explanation of all of this sometimes complex content, and to the rest of the people online. Please stay online because there's a great afternoon as well planned with a lot of interesting sessions and a second day as well.
I'll start with a little announcement of the program change. So Marijke, who was going to host this session, unfortunately got sick this morning. She's coughing, so it's not really practical to run the session with talking, but she's with us available on the chat. So if you want to do something nice, you can wish her well on the chat. And follow our future sessions, because she is a great host and a great diversity and inclusion specialist. So Aleksandra Strzelichowska, Senior Online Marketing Specialist at Europeana for visual introduction, white woman in my 30s, dark, long hair, lavender color jumper. Will run the session instead of her and try to make the best of it. Today's session is about using mediums which are expressive, emotional, and creative in order to uncover marginalized stories. So Willem Driebergen, who is a graphic designer, audiovisual specialist, and sound engineer, and who has a big passion for music and a massive collection of records, will tell us about his work on a production on the exhibition about gospel in the museum Sint Catharijne Convent in Utrecht in the Netherlands. And then Lila Harris, who is a self-taught artist, exploring a variety of formats and mediums, but very much interested in portrait. And also exploring how marginalized experience and everyday life can be explored and showcased through art. We'll talk about the way we can show the stories through art and music, how they are received by the audience, and how do they work, what is the process behind their work. Willem, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Alex. Let's get some control of the slides. Yes, here we go. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. I hope Marijke is doing well soon. So my name is Willem Driebergen, and I worked as a research assistant and audiovisual advisor on the gospel exhibition for the Museum Catharijne Convent in Utrecht. It was a very special thing for me. I'm trained as a sound engineer, as Alex told before. I had my own studio for a long time before I switched jobs as a freelance graphic designer, and now I'm part-time also working for museums and their audio and visual guidance. So in my life, music has always been a major part of it. I've been playing music, collecting music, making music, researching music. I'm a DJ. It's basically what makes me happy in life. So I was really happy when I got the job to work for this gospel exhibition. The Museum Catharijne Convent is the Dutch Rijksmuseum, or National Museum for the Art, Culture and History of Christianity. So therefore, the museum was a perfect place for an exhibition on Black gospel music. But an exhibition on a music genre like gospel is a very new experience for the museum. As you can see, the permanent collection is different than what we had in mind. So the amount of video and audio that we used in our exhibition was enormous compared to the permanent collection and the normal exhibitions. And with a subject like gospel, there was also very small amount of physical objects to show in the exhibition. So most of the storytelling had to be done audiovisually. So there was plenty of work for me to be done. So today I want to talk you through some of the ways we brought the music and history of gospel to life. From its roots in the era of slavery, when enslaved people linked their situation to the Christian narrative of salvation and liberation, up to present-day struggle for equality in movements such as the Black Lives Matter. So gospel has always been a testament of faith, hope, and love. So our exhibition had 6 themes. Here you see the first one, which was called Oh Happy Day. As you can see, we had a big circular wall with 6 TV screens in them. And there we showed a short compilation of greatest gospel hits, just to get everybody grounded into what gospel is. Our second theme was in church and in nightclubs, which was about the start of gospel in the early 30s up till the 60s, and the struggle it had with churches and nightclubs. So can you sing gospel in a nightclub, yes or no, which is still an issue today. Our third theme was about the roots of gospel, which are spirituals, and it has African roots. It started in the plantations in the southern states of the US. Then the fourth theme is about gospel and protest, about the civil rights movement and Black Lives Matter movement and its connection with the music. The fifth theme, my favorite theme, gospel source for popular music. This was basically a music room. I'll get more into that later, but yeah, very musical, the place where you could hear the music. And then the last theme was Gospel Lives On, about gospel in the Netherlands today in the churches. So in the exhibitions, we wanted to give every theme a bit of a modern perspective or reflection. And as the building of the museum is an old monastery, we had a lot of these bay windows, neggen they're called in Dutch. And as you can see in the picture, we used some of them with text, as you can see on the right, which has the song We Shall Overcome, and some explanation about that song. But we also had some video portraits, like you can see on the left and in the middle, where we had the screens in portrait mode, so you can really focus on the emotions of the people being interviewed. Some of these portraits, we asked the people to look at some archival footage, which you see in the middle, and we let them watch at the screen, and then it looks like they're really watching it live on the floor. So this is an example of this. This was about the 90-year-old sculptress Nel van Lith, we see in the middle. We wanted to show the statue you see there, which is of Marion Williams, a very famous gospel singer from the early 60s. We had contact with Nel about whether or not we could use the statue. And as we contacted her, she started telling about the time she made the statue. She was a very young girl, early 60s. And she went in Amsterdam to a concert of Marion Williams, and she was so enthusiastic. She really felt the spirit when Marion was singing. So she went home straight away and started the sculpture as soon as she got home. So I was in love with that story, and she was so enthusiastic when she was telling about it. So I went to Beeld en Geluid, the Institute of Art and of Sound and Vision in the Netherlands, and I found footage of that concert in Amsterdam, which you see on the small screen on the left. So there we interviewed Nel, and she watched the footage and got that vibe again, that same energy as she had in the 60s. And so together with the statue and the small screen, it really became a very nice object in our exhibition. Another example of this is an interview we did with Dutch jazz singer Denise Jonna. I found some footage also in Beeldgeluid in the Institute of Sound and Vision of some different Suriname gospel choirs also in the early 60s. So we really wanted to feature that, and then we asked her to reflect on this, on the influence of gospel in Suriname. And as we were doing a pre-interview with Denise, she told me about her father, who was, he started one of the first gospel quartets in the Netherlands when he moved here from Suriname. After that interview, I went to search on Discogs, which is an online database for music sellers, and I found the one EP her father had made, which you see on the right, Good News by the Suriname Gospel Singers. So when we started interviewing her, I brought the single as the EP as a surprise, but I also edited a little video of the sound of the EP. So we had her watch her father sing, and apparently she hadn't heard her father for many years. She hadn't heard this EP either. She didn't have it. So she got quite emotional watching it, and we have that on video. And as soon as it stops, she talked very proudly, "This is my daddy. This is so great to hear him sing." And then she started to tell about the way gospel groups started in the Netherlands and Suriname in those early days when she was a young girl, and how she remembered the group rehearsing in their home. So yeah, in the end, this became my favorite part of the exhibition. Actually, I always brought goosebumps to my arm every time I saw it. I gifted her the EP after the interview. So for our theme about gospel and protest, we were in contact with Pastor Harkert Kleinfelter, which you see on the left, walking next to Martin Luther King. So Pastor Harkert was the former press officer of Martin Luther King, and nowadays he lives in the Netherlands. He used to make press releases for Dr. King and the Civil Rights Movement, which he used for radio stations. And he gave us an audio clip he made from the march from Selma to Montgomery in 1965. The audio clip was an interview with a young girl who tells about her motivation to walk that march alongside Dr. King, and why the right for the right to vote was so important to her. I think the girl was 16, 17 years old. And she really tells about the hardships of this march. So she had no food, she was scared to drink because she didn't want to be left behind if everybody else moved on. There was rain, it was cold, she had no sleep, she had blisters. She basically came unprepared, but just needed to be there. She was determined to finish this march. This clip was really emotional, but we wanted to bring it to life. So I went to the Institute of Beeldgeluid of Sound and Vision, and in their archives I found a lot of footage from that march, and I edited together to kind of illustrate what the girl was talking about and what she was going through. And it also gave us a chance to subtitle the audio, because for Dutch people, her very strong Southern accent might be hard to follow, and it was really important that people got the overall message. So afterwards, we showed Pastor Kleinfelter, and he was really pleased with the result. For our spirituals theme on African roots, spirituals is where gospel really started. It was one of our major themes, actually, and because there is very little archival material about spirituals, we had to find something new. So our curator wrote a text together with poet and spoken word artist Gershwin Bonifacia, and he brought the text, and he was accompanied by percussion played by a Suriname percussionist called Carlo Hope. We filmed it in an empty church, and it really became a centerpiece of our exhibition. As you can see here, We had a giant screen and the room was filled with old African drums. So for our last theme, we had the source for popular music. This was our music room. It really focused on the influence gospel had on other types of music. And as you can see here, we have a giant Hammond organ in the middle, large screens showing a concert by Mahalia Jackson in Utrecht in 1964. We had Aretha Franklin singing Amazing Grace. On the left, you see that. And on the walls, we had audio tours, small spots, where we had 6 music styles, and our co-curator Sherma Rouse, famous Dutch gospel singer, explained on the hand of 5 songs for each theme, how you could hear the influence of the gospel sound on other music styles. People really took time here to listen to this music. As you can see on this slide, we built in extra seating for people so they could really enjoy and experience the music. You see such a wall for soul music. Then for our last bit of the exhibition, this was the exit, which is a glass bridge between 2 buildings. And during the preparation, we got a lot of requests from people who wanted to hear live music in the exhibition, which is sort of impossible because you can't have an artist play every day in the exhibition. So together with the Dutch Evangelical Broadcasting Network, the AO, we recorded a concert sung by our co-curator Sherma Rouse and some of her gospel friends, the cream of the Dutch gospel scene. And we recorded it and we showed the 6 themes had their own tune, their own song. We showed those 6 songs, and then people could watch the complete concert afterwards at home through a QR code or a URL mailed to them with their registration. So I asked the organization to share this link with you. You can also scan this QR code so you can watch the full concert on YouTube. So this brings me to the end of my talk. If you want to hear some of my favorite gospel songs, please check out my gospel playlist on Spotify. Working on this exhibition has been a really rewarding experience for me. I've learned so much and it has given me so much. It was really nice to see all the emotions that came with this exhibition in the museum. So thank you for your attention and the opportunity to tell this story to an international audience. Thank you.
Thank you, Willem. I hope you continue curating because this is your secret superpower, which got uncovered in this way. We had a comment from Isabel, who really enjoyed the exhibition, and she was really impressed by the combination of music and personal stories. And this is the opinion I share as well. That's why I wanted more people to hear about it, and also about this way of working. Yeah. Having kind of a big blockbuster, big theme connected to archival material and history. This is very strong and a very nice way to tell stories. And another very interesting way of telling stories is through art. And this brings me to our second speaker, Lila Hayries, who is an award-winning self-taught artist focusing on a portrait and interested in exploring everyday through art and uncovering hidden stories of marginalized communities. The floor is yours.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. You'll have to bear with me now as I try and get control of the screen. I'm very excited to be here today, so thank you everybody for checking in. Okay, so I think I might be ready momentarily to start sharing my screen.
Does it work for you?
I'm clicking, but my slides don't seem to be coming on. Do I? Aha, I'm on.
There is a tiny delay, so
Okay.
click
Nope.
and take a breath.
I'm
You
ready
don't
to go. I can see my slide. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. Yeah, my name is Layla Harris, and I'm a British figurative artist who's lucky enough to live in the Lake District in the UK, which is at the north of the country, a very beautiful area. I mainly concentrate, my work is kind of really interested in telling stories through portraiture. I'm quite new to the art world. As I'm self-taught, I kind of started teaching myself to draw and paint about 4 years ago. So I've just been using kind of like online resources to teach myself. So YouTube, other artists sharing their work on social media and Pinterest and the occasional online workshop to help me kind of get a footing in what I'd like to learn about my own work. So my work is quite eclectic, but through the power of social media, I've made some really fantastic connections creatively. And also it's been a brilliant platform to share my work. And luckily enough, this has allowed me to develop my work further and kind of focus on telling the stories of kind of like marginalized individuals and those forgotten by history. So you can see some examples of my portraiture work here, kind of play around with charcoal and pastel and collage and oil paint. So through social media, especially Instagram, I was fortunate enough to be contacted by one of the art directors from the Folio Society, which is a UK publisher, and they're renowned for their illustrated novels. And out of the blue, about 2 years ago, I was contacted and asked if I'd like to work on a book. Previous to this, I'd just been drawing for fun, so I had no kind of professional experience of commissions. So when they got in touch, I was really unsure as to how whether the opportunity was even real. So I spent quite a lot of time doing some research to figure out whether it was true. Anyway, it was true. And they asked me whether I would be interested in illustrating a book. And the book, it turns out, was The Colour Purple by Alice Walker, which many of you might know is quite a famous book. So I was over the moon and terrified and kind of thought there was no way I was going to get the commission. But fortunately, after doing some trial drawings, the art director from the Folio Society got back in touch to say that Alice Walker really loved my drawings and would I be interested in illustrating the book. So I got the commission for the first ever illustrated edition of The Colour Purple, which really focuses on marginalized individuals in the South of America and tells a really kind of groundbreaking story of a woman's perspective. So I illustrated the cover, 7 internal illustrations, and also the box that the book came in. And through that work, I was shortlisted for a V&A award for the book cover design, and I was became second place runner-up in that award, which was quite surprising because I never in a million years thought I would A, illustrate a book, and B, become runner-up for the V&A Museum Book Category Award. So that's been really exciting. Right, so the main reason why I'm here to talk to you today is actually about the Facing the Past commission that I worked on last year. And this is working with a museum in the UK in Lancaster. And Lancaster was one of the 4th biggest slave trading ports in the UK, which I was unaware of. And there's been lots of people who've been unaware of the links to slavery. So in the wake of the George Floyd incident and Black Lives Matter, Lancaster really wanted to kind of explore and highlight its connections to the slave trade, especially the this particular museum, which has several portraits of the elite of Lancaster during the 18th century, people like Abraham Rawlinson, Mary Hutton Rawlinson, and Benjamin Satterthwaite. These all financially benefited from the slave trade. However, within the museum, there's no portraits of some of the enslaved Africans that came through Lancaster during this time. And through a kind of collaborative project between Lancaster Black History Group, Lancaster University, UCLan, and Lancaster City Council and the museum services, they wanted to readdress the imbalance that this particular museum currently featured within its collection. So I was commissioned to develop portraits of 4 Black enslaved Africans that came through Lancaster during the 1700s. So I was kind of set with the challenge of how do you create portraits of individuals where you have no visual references, and some of the historical records, there was baptism and burial records which were online, and so I was able to kind of find information about 39 Black Africans who came to Lancaster during this time, and also some of those enslaved Africans were also slaves that ran away from their masters, their owners, and within the runaway slaves database, which is run by Glasgow University, I've put the web link below, there are clippings from newspaper adverts. So for one of the particular portrait subjects, who's known as Ibu Boy within his runaway slave advert, I had some snippets of information. So for each portrait candidate, I developed a kind of fact sheet for each of the individuals so we could ascertain what we knew as facts, what we knew as conjecture, what connections could we make to some of the other portraits within the museum, and then also thoughts, creative thoughts that I had for each of the individuals. So initially I spent as much time researching these enslaved Africans as I did drawing and painting, because I really wanted to get to know them as individuals, as people, before I kind of thought about what they could potentially look like. So I thought I'd go through Ibu Boy as an example as how I could create a portrait going from a really small bit of historical fact. So from the runaway slave advert, which you can see here, and there's a kind of narrative down here so you can read it a bit better because it's quite faded, this example. We know that this particular young boy, we knew his age, 16, how tall he was, 5'3". We had some physical features. He had a small lump on his forehead, he had beautiful features, and he had country marks on his temples, which kind of indicates that he had scarification marks, and also walked with a limp. And we also knew what kind of clothes he wore. Blue jacket, grey cloth waistcoat, and leather breeches. And we also know that he was born in Africa because he spoke, but spoke in a broad Lancashire dialect. So from these bits of information, then we could start to think about who this person was. So for example, to have developed a broad Lancashire dialect, he must have been in Lancaster for a long period of time to be able to have developed such a strong accent, local accent. We know he lived by the sea in Heysham because it tells us of his location. We know his physical features. We also knew that he was kind of seen to be valued property because there's a high reward hinted at the advert, if you read the advert through. And we can also kind of hope that he was not found after he ran away because he's not mentioned in Reverend Clarkson's will, and that is the person who is named as his owner. So there's lots of fascinating information in this small snippet of historical record. And from this point, I then started to imagine what this boy could look like emotionally before I decided what he could look like physically. So I thought about what his name could be. What was he an orphan? Was he forcefully separated from his parents? Why wasn't he baptized? Because there's no record of him being baptized, even though he is owned by a reverend. And also because of his broad Lancashire dialect, did somebody within the town of Heysham help him run away because he knew he had lots of contacts within that area? So all these thoughts are whirring around my head. And then from that point, I've kind of got like an emotional picture in my mind as to, you know, him sat there thinking about running away, or him running, going back home, or thinking about where he can go next. And so from that point, I then start to piece together a portrait. So this is the portrait I did of Ibu Boy, and I've got him sat here thinking about possibly what his next steps are, and also what his past could possibly be. And I've chosen to do a collage portrait, which is really like a mixed media portrait. So there's pastel, biro, charcoal, gouache pen and ink to kind of illustrate how we're all made up of different pieces. And as individuals, we're made up of so many different facets that it's important to think of these enslaved Africans as not just enslaved Africans, but as real individuals, as people we may have met in our everyday lives and become friends with, and could have been cousins with, and to humanize them more, which I think has been really important in this exhibition. So as part of this exhibition, we also did several schools workshops with local young children, and I worked with a member of Lancaster Black History Group, who's also a school teacher and a historian, and we went through the same process with Ibu Boy. We talked about the newspaper advert and how we could imagine what his life would have been like, and Geraldine brought in some clothes from Nigeria so that the young people could understand where he came from, and they also kind of did some role playing as to what a slave ship would have been like for this young person. And that really helped them to develop their own portraits of Ibu Boy, which you can see up at the top. So as part of this exhibition, there's also a young people's exhibition showcasing the work that they've done. So kind of to sum up, this is a fantastic quote by Saidiya Hartman, is that I kind of trawl through the archives and kind of try to represent them with the smallest bits of information, because I think it's fascinating to bring these untold stories to life and to use them as a starting point for us to use our imagination to carry on their stories. So although we don't know what they look like, I think it's really important to use our imagination to kind of continue their stories in many ways and connect the past to the present. So working on this project as well kind of made me feel like I'd spent 12 months getting to know these individuals, but there was a part of me that didn't know myself. So I kind of like spent most of my life not knowing who my father was, and getting to know these 6 people that I created these portraits through made me kind of look inwards and be inspired to find out the answers to that question that I've been asking myself for a long time. So I did a DNA test to figure out what my ancestral roots were, and to see if I had any connections to where some of these people had come from, because my mother's not alive anymore to ask these questions to. And it was really fascinating to find out that I am half Irish, but on my father's paternal side, I am from Ghana, which I never knew. And I've also kind of figured out that where my father now lives, and that I've got several half siblings. So I'm at the point now in my life where I may in the future try and make those connections myself. So working on this project has kind of changed me hugely. So these are 2 of the portraits of some of the enslaved Africans that came through, or Black Lancastrians that came through Lancaster during this time. This one is of Thomas Anson, and this one is of Frances Elizabeth Johnson. So it would be fantastic if you kind of try to find out more about this exhibition, which was a group exhibition. Thank you so much for your time. Sorry I've run over a little bit.
Thank you, Leila. It was perfect and so interesting to see different ways you are working with the archival material, but how this professional assignment also introduced you to be interested in your personal story, and a big inspiration about sharing your work on Instagram and then having all those opportunities appearing and coming and just following through with it. So everyone check about Black Lancastrians. If you have questions for Leila and Willem, use the Q&A section. I have one question to start with. So you both explored archives, and the way you presented it in your talks, it seemed like quite easy, but how is the process of searching this material? How long does it take? How do you collect this material more practically, so that if the members of our audience want to do it as well, they know what to expect?
Do you want to go? Oh, shall I go? Okay. For me personally, because I'd worked on the colour purple, it kind of gave me a good basis to develop my work further. So I found it quite easy to use like the New York Public Library. They've got quite a lot of documentary photography resources that are in the public domain of ex-plantation workers. So that really helped me kind of visualise what some of the people could look at. And then I also benefited from all the academics that were part of Lancaster University and the Black History Group. So they'd already uncovered quite a lot of information and then pointed me in the direction of the baptism and burial records. But it was surprising how much information you can find from just a quick Google search.
Yeah, well, I think most of the research I did in the past 35 years collecting records and working with music. And for this exhibition, I basically started with YouTube and Google, and soon I turned to Delver, which is a Dutch platform with all Dutch newspapers and magazines from I think the last almost 2 centuries, basically, which was very useful to find some dates and to find some broadcasting dates of concerts. After that, I also searched, of course, Europeana a lot to get footage and to find a bit more outside the Netherlands. And the major part I did find the most material was, as I told earlier, Beeld en Geluid, the Dutch Institute for Sound and Vision. Yeah, they have amazing archives. So I think I've spent 2 days looking there, and then a couple of more days online in their archive. And then one more I'd like to mention is 2 more actually. Is INA, which the French Institute for Sound and Vision, basically. They also have a lot of great musical footage. And from the US, I basically took archive.org and the Library of Congress archives. Were very interesting.
Perfect, thank you. That's really a lot of sources, but also what Leila said, a short Google search is a good start. So it's always like this with the collections, that you start and then you dig deeper and deeper and then you cannot stop. So everyone, if you have a nice project in mind, plenty of stuff is available. There are lovely comments about your both works, but in the meantime, I already have questions. So for both, what kind of challenges did you encounter during the process you have gone through while preparing your work?
Probably for me was working with all the different partners and making sure that I listened to everyone's viewpoints, because there were several different partners and I didn't want to step on anybody's toes, and also ensuring that the artwork fitted into the museum. I should have showed some photographs of the work up on the wall, but so I had to be sympathetic to the surroundings of a 400-year-old museum, and my work is quite modern, so I had to take that into consideration. But with help from the curators at the museum, I think it's worked really nicely, that it's a kind of slightly timeless. It's quite modern, but it also links back to the other pieces in the exhibition. So I think that's been the biggest challenge for me.
Mm. Yeah, I think my biggest challenge was that I have no I have no background in museums, so I didn't know any of the rules that are apparently, and I feel very passionate about music, as you might have known by now. So I wanted to feature a lot of long fragments, video fragments, and audio fragments, and basically they wanted to cut everything short. And I had a difficult time with the volume of the audio. So I really wanted to have it as an experience, whereas the museum wants to cater to all people, also people who don't really like loud noise. That was my personal most problematic thing to get over in the past 2 years.
And what was the highlight then? What was like the most fun thing to do throughout the process?
I think for me it was working with the school children, because I've never done art workshops before, and they were like so inspiring and sponges for knowledge. They were, as soon as we presented the information, I thought, I had to be quite sensitive because it could be quite harrowing what this young person has gone through, but they were accepted him a bit like a classmate, and they wanted to know his story. So we developed these big long storybooks about how he might have escaped, and they were imagining dragons coming to his rescue and stuff like that. So I thought that was really inspiring. And then I think my second highlight was the opening night, the private view, because I'm just literally most of my time I'm spent drawing at home in my slippers. I don't do any kind of arty stuff. But the private view, there were so many people there, and Lubaina Hamid opened the exhibition, and she's like really, really famous Turner Prize winning artist. And it was like I was gobsmacked. It was an incredible moment. So they're my two highlights.
Mm.
Yeah, what are yours,
I think they kind of match Lila's highlights. So my highlights, I think, were all the people I've met and the stories I've heard. So first in research, the interviews, for example, I showed with Denise Janna, the jazz singer. It was all very emotional, and I heard stories, especially how slavery still has impact in the Netherlands, which for me as a white male from a small village, I knew about it, but I never felt it the way I did when I was talking to, for example, Denise. But basically every interview I had became emotional like this. And then after the opening, I had some talks. I did a presentation. I met a lot of people on the floor of the exhibition itself, and I had so many in-depth conversations about music and the role of music and how it empowered people. And we had people crying in the museum quite a lot, which is new. I think that's probably the nicest thing I took from this experience.
Now from the highlights and emotional stuff to a nitty-gritty of metadata. Claudia is asking whether you use digitalized archives in your work and whether the metadata was really helpful or it's something that should be better. What do you think?
I've got no reply to that. I don't think metadata has really impacted on my work in particular. It might be so in how it's been advertised, the exhibition afterwards, but I haven't got any personal experience of that.
Yeah, I've mainly worked digital in my research, and what I found is that a lot of material still isn't really tagged with the right words. But because I'm used to looking for records in I'm a crate digger, as a record collector, you're used to going from one place to another and just spending time looking and looking, and that made it for me kind of normal, but it would have been nice if things were easier to find sometimes. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the metadata and especially vocabulary remain a big challenge. It's also the case on our website. You both work with different kinds of media. You, Leila, in your own work, you explore different techniques. You, Willem, were putting together the music next to archival footage and sculptures. How did you go about it? Like, encompassing all those techniques, did you have to learn? I know for you, Willem, it was collaborating with other people, but Leila, how did you discover all these different techniques while being a new wish artist?
I think for me, I benefit from being a self-taught artist because I could just do what I want. Nobody's really expecting me to do anything. So I haven't set any boundaries for myself. And I think now maybe my kind of like UPS is I like to try different things. And I was given a lot of freedom at the museum to kind of create what I felt best reflected the lives of those enslaved Africans. So they didn't put any constraints. So I'm so lucky that, you know, as to what kind of creative output they wanted. So I kind of felt my way through the project. Like Ibu Boy was a collage, and it just kind of felt like that was appropriate to tell his story. Whereas the portrait of Frances Elizabeth Johnson, she was a woman brought back from St. Kitts to live with a wealthy family. And she lived with them for a long time. And then they thought that they described her as a beloved servant in their family kind of narrative. But as a beloved servant, they decided to chop her hand off when she died and mummified it and kept it on the mantelpiece of their family house for the next 200 years until it was buried in 1997 at the Priory. So that was a much more emotionally charged portrait. So I spent ages using a medium that I was more comfortable in terms of pastel and getting her gaze right. So kind of like more of an emotional connection to the viewer. So I think I just try to match my medium to the individual. I did it that way.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, well, I think I'm only trained as a sound engineer, and the rest of my work I've always been self-taught, and it's always been creative. So basically, every medium I have. I have this saying by Pippi Longstocking, which says, I've never done it, so I think I can do it. I think that's the right translation. So that's basically my way to go. And I was lucky that the museum also gave me the room to try anything that I thought I could do. That's basically how I use creativity.
Thank you. Thank you both for your presentations and for trying new things and inspiring the rest to do it. So we are closing day one of the Digital Storytelling Festival. I would say the keyword of today was connection. We started talking about the connections between different cultures and the need to celebrate them together. Then we started to talk with Marta and Anna about looking at work of someone and making a connection with them in order to create a video that others can watch and be interested in. Then with Lisa, Sam and Thijs, it was about mental health and trying to find a connection with yourself, but also with the others in order to tell your story. Maggie and Jolan told us about creating connections between different objects and different collections and curating in order to tell a story. And then with Leila and Willem, making a connection between creative mediums and archival stories, but also getting your own work and your talents out there in order to make connections that open new opportunities, which I find absolutely amazing. And we also, with all of us, made a connection here during those sessions. I would like everyone to thank you for your enthusiasm, for your questions, for nice comments for all the speakers, and for your time this morning and afternoon. Thank you very much, everyone. See you tomorrow.